Fast forward. Oiler fans, are you having a good day? I'm sorry. I'm just going to preface that by I'm sorry by the next example I will use. This player was drafted 4th overall in 2012. He then played 2 more seasons as a junior, then turned pro, played 59 games in the American League, 8 games in the NHL, and got traded at the draft. His name was Griffin Reinhart, and the Oilers acquired him for the 16th and 32nd picks. Didn't go that well for Edmonton. Now did it? Matt Barzal, and the Islanders used that 33 pick to move up to 28 and took Anthony Beauvillier. So I think it's safe to say we know who won that one. Right there, you didn't win. Now, fast forward a few years. Mikhail Sergachev was drafted 9th overall in 2016 by Montreal. He played 4 games coming out of camp that year, then went back to junior as expected. Then at the following June, before the draft, less than a year after he'd been drafted, they traded him to Tampa Bay for Jonathan Drouin, who was a 3rd overall pick in 2013. Drouin, of course, was with Tampa Bay. Remember, he had asked for a trade. He went home. Then he came back, went to the minors. Then he finished up in Tampa Bay. And Montreal obviously felt like, guess what? We need a French-Canadian forward. So they took Jonathan Drouin for Sergachev. Tampa Bay, big winners. Winner, chicken dinner for that one. Now, the other 2 have both happened from 2022 draft picks. Cutter Gauthier was 4th overall by by Philly in 2022, and he got traded this past January for Jamie Drysdale. Basically, Cutter Gauthier said to Philly, I'm not going to sign you, so I'm not going to sign with you. So they elected to move him for Drysdale, who was a 6th overall pick in 2020, and a 2nd-round pick. Now, it's a little too early to say who's going to win. There's lots of people that are super high on Cutter Gauthier. And if he becomes the player that many people think, well, then, yes, they'll probably win the deal. So then you throw in the next one, Savoie McLeod. Now, if you look at Johnson, not really comparable because Savoie has signed with Buffalo. He's got a 3-year entry-level deal. They didn't have to trade him. And it was a multiplayer trade. You throw in Sergachev, it was young guy for young guy. Ryan McLeod, not that highly touted of a pick. Now, he's more of a proven NHL player, which at the time, I guess, Drouin was over Sergachev. So I guess that one's kind of close. It's probably the closest one when it comes to age of the players. Griffin Reinhart was that one for picks, and obviously it ended horribly for the Edmonton Oilers. Horribly is how that ended for Edmonton. And Cutter Gauthier a little too early. But if you were looking at one trade, now it falls out my category of outs because I was looking at top 10 picks. But this guy is just outside top 10. He's number 11. Philip Forsberg was drafted 11th overall in 2012. Now, he stayed in Sweden, as expected, 18-year-old, played his year in Sweden. Then at the trade deadline in 2013. So remember, Washington drafted him. The season was delayed. They start in late January. And at the trade deadline that year, they said, you know what? We're going to trade this guy for a 31-year-old player named Martin Erat. Now, Marty Erat had 8 consecutive years where it's hard to be more consistent than him. He had 8 consecutive seasons between 16 and 21 goals and 49 and 58 points. Like, you can't get more consistent than that. Right? So he's a really good, solid, kind of complimentary top 6 forward. Nothing wrong with it. But he was 31. And oh my goodness. It was like, now if you look at his numbers, he had 21 points in the 30 games that season before he got traded, 21 and 32. So kind of close, would have been like right around the 48, 49 point total, but at the low end. And after he got dealt, the wheels, they just fell off. He had 3 points in 9 games to end that season with Washington. Then the following season with the Caps, he had 1 goal, 24 points in 53 games. The organization obviously felt like, geez, we really screwed up here. And so they traded him to Arizona. And then he played 1 more year in Arizona, had 9 goals, 32 points, and he was out of the NHL. So you traded away Philip Forsberg for a 31-year-old player who played 2 more NHL seasons. Now, he did play in the KHL for 1 year and then 4 years in the Quebec top league. Sorry, the Czechia top league. He won 2 championships. Really good player there, but he wasn't an NHL player. So Ryan McLeod is not 31, right? Ryan McLeod is a young player, drafted in 2018. He's a 1999. He's 25 years of age later this summer. I think Ryan McLeod is going to play at least 10 years in the league. I have no doubt in my mind. So there's nothing that's really like McLeod's not Eric Belanger. He's not Marty Erat as far as, older guys. Now, he's also not a Matt Barzell, who was a 16th overall pick. And he's not even Jonathan Drouin. Probably not. I don't know if he's that skilled. So it's different, right? But Savoie comes in, and this guy is ultra talented. He averaged 2 points a game this past year. Granted, in a shortened season, because he only played 34 games. He was up in the NHL, and then he's in the American League, and then he's at the World Juniors. So he only played 34 games. But he was good. The Oilers have all sorts of time to develop him. And that's where, to me, Buffalo gets a guaranteed asset. Ryan McLeod, now, there's salary cap implications. Edmonton needed dump salary. And he's going to need a contract at the end of the year. He's going to get a raise. So he likely wasn't going to fit where Edmonton's going. So the fact that they got Savoie, I think, is a really good deal for Edmonton. I don't hate the trade for Buffalo. There's just way more risk for Buffalo. Buffalo is the one that risks it because in 3 or 4 years, if Matt Savoie is a 50, 60, 70-point player, people are going to be like, what are you doing? But if Ryan McLeod becomes a solid 35, 40-point player, he's a solid third-line center, at least they're getting a good player. But there's clearly risk involved. There's not much risk for Edmonton. They needed to shed money. Ryan McLeod, if you look at their depth chart, look at their centers right now. McDavid, Draisaitl, Henrique. Would you put him ahead of any of them in the roles they play? Probably not. He's not going to play right wing. So then on the left wing depth chart, you got Nugent Hopkins, you have Skinner, you have Kane, and you have Holloway and Janmark. So where does he fit? So they were able to move a player out who likely, was probably, would have been a really good fourth-line center, really good fourth-line center. But it's a luxury to have a fourth-line center making $2.1 million. It's usually not a luxury for a competitive team. If you want to go to the cup, it just doesn't work. So there's not a huge risk here. The only way I see this not working out for Edmonton is if they don't develop Savoie properly. Be ultra patient. But also, this coming season, this is a skilled forward. Play him in skilled forward positions. Yes, he's not going to be as great defensively as you would like. I don't care. Keep his confidence up. Work with him on his defensive game, but let him be creative offensively on the power play. And if they can do that, then they should have a pretty good player. Whether it's later this season, probably not later this season, earlier on. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, Gregor, what about the Nieuwendyk deal? Yeah, I know, dude. We were talking the salary cap era, my man. That's what I said from 2005 and on. Only the salary cap era. In the history of the game, yes. But Nieuwendyk worked out for both. You can't really compare. That was a win-win. Jerome McGinley became very good for Calgary, and Dallas won a Stanley Cup with Joe Nieuwendyk, and he was an integral part of that. They would do both organizations. If you asked them to do that trade again, they would both do it. Without question. There is no way that Dallas would say, well, geez, Jerome turned out to be a really good player. Well, Joe Nieuwendyk's a Hall of Fame player. Right? He came to Dallas and they won a Stanley Cup. They lost in the Stanley Cup final. There's not much more you can do. Right? What did he play? 7 years, I think, in Dallas? I think it was 7.
Low down with low.
Maybe he got traded in his 7th year at the deadline to the Devils. I have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure he played 6 or 7 years. So you're right, but that's one that worked out. He's a young guy in Iginla. Higher pick, not a top 10 pick, though. He's outside. He's kind of like in the Forsberg range. So we'll see. Also today on the show, how excited were you on Friday night? And maybe how surprised excited for you. Let us know. You can text us 833-401-1440. 833-401-1440 in our eWell inbox. Jason Gregor. We got Declan Kruger sitting in for the con man today. And Canada, Venezuela. Oh, my goodness. The first 30 minutes, Canada could be up 3-0. Had some great chances. Couldn't bury it. Then Venezuela ties it, and A little bit of a gaffe, really. But they managed to persevere. They get some huge saves in penalty kicks. And then they win. Kone comes in and, man, what poise for a young guy. My only complaint about the whole game, who's the cameraman? Why, when Kone scores, are we showing the coach? What the bleep is going on? Show Kone. He scored the goal. I don't need to see the reaction of the coach. Of course he's excited. I want to see the reaction of the guy who scored. Looked like it was cold-blooded. He just was like, hey, how's it going? It's a pretty calm guy. Good for him. Most of us have been losing my mind if I scored that goal. Sprinting the length of the field, probably. Why not? It was a huge goal. You know what? That's easily the biggest penalty kick in, I think, maybe Davies one's close, but still. It was huge. And now they take on Argentina tomorrow night. And, Dak, I know you're a pretty big soccer guy, but like this, a lot of people are like, oh, the Euros, I'm really into the Euros. Well, now there's a lot of Canadians who are like, hey, wait a sec. I'm into the Copa Americas. And you should be. Like this, I know there's lots of people who have ancestors, from Europe, and I totally get it. I understand it. But this is the country you live in now. Something tells me you probably have some strings that pull pretty close to your heart on that one. It was a fantastic match where it probably ended up a little closer than Canada wanted, because early on they could have buried them in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think your original point about when the Euros are around and when the World Cup is around, people found teams to cheer for based on their lineage, their heritage, because that's all they had, right? They didn't have a Canadian team to cheer for. They didn't have anything to be invested in. Now we have it, not only in a world-class player in Alphonso Davies, who spearheads the team, but in a true program that has built something from the ground up on the back of Jesse Marsh. They've been incredible. And even 2 years ago, if you told someone that, hey, in 2 years, Canada is going to outlast Brazil at Copa America, they would have taken you out behind the barn. And the growth of this club and this country and this nation footballing has been incredible. It's been incredible to watch, and all the mad football fans here in Canada now finally have something to cheer for, and it's a beautiful thing.
Now, what did you make of that Uruguay Brazil game? Like, it was painful to watch, but man, did Colombia ever look good over Panama? I'll say, like, that was an absolute ass kicking. And I found, I watched Canada, Venezuela. I found myself watching more. I'm watching a little bit of Colombia and Panama, and Colombia is all now. Panama did have some chances, I will say that, but Colombia spanked them. The Uruguay Brazil game, I'm curious about our diehard soccer fans. Andi Petrillo will join us later on today. That was one of the worst games holy gosh, there was nothing going on. But now they're out. So Canada, hey, dare to dream. Dare to dream against Argentina tomorrow. That will be that'll be outstanding, I think. Outstanding. So I look forward to it tomorrow night. We'll talk about that later on today. Also, we will have 2-minute warning with Cam Tate. Sheng Peng will join us. We continue to go around the Pacific Division. We stop in San Jose. Today, the Sharks got their number one pick, Macklin Celebrini, signed. They went out. They got Tyler Toffoli, some other veterans. I think they just want to be respectable this season. They don't have any aspirations of making the playoffs. Now, they might say it publicly, but let's be real. They're not a playoff team. Spec will be by Kevin Woodley. We'll talk goaltending. If you missed it, Sylvain Rodrigue, who is the goaltending coach in the American League, he is moving on. So the Oilers. Now, this has been in the works kind of for a while since the season ended, my understanding. And so the Oilers have they've already done some interviews, and they'll be looking to fill that spot. You want your goaltending to be somewhat unified in now not every goalie has the exact same style. That's the thing, right? You can't just say we're going to coach our goalies this way. Well, what if you drafted a goalie who doesn't play that way? It's not that simple. You can't just say you have to play this way. You have to get the goalie. You can make some small tweaks, because it's kind of like saying, well, hey, we want all of our shooters to shoot one way. We want all of you to skate one certain way. We can't do it. Somebody has a long stride. Somebody has a short side. Somebody has a choppy stride. Everybody's different. Right? No goalie plays the game the exact same way. There's some technical things that they would like to add to it. So, we'll see what that does down. Olivier Rodrigue, he's progressed fine. I don't think he's knocked it out of the park. But again, goaltending, as I've always said, tell me the goalies under the age of 25 who are crushing it. Right? Like they're the unicorns. There's just not many of them. So, where Stuart Skinner's at, if anybody's complaining or concerned about where Stuart Skinner is in his development, I'm not really sure you're paying attention, to be honest. It is very rarely a starter who is under the age of 25. It's just not. So, heck, you get some backups in there, but a lot of guys, they get drafted, then they go back to junior, some are in college. Right? You come to Europe, you come over here, you play in the minor leagues for a few years, and maybe you can get a backup job for a bit. Then you become a regular starter. Of course, there are some that do it, for sure, but not a ton. Right? Like Andre Vasilevsky is the exception to the rule. Marc-Andre Fleury, exception to the rule. Right? Probably a reason why they're first-round picks. Carey Price. Right? Those are the exceptions. We'll get to all that and more when we return on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. You can always text us in our email inbox, 833-401-1440. Your thoughts on the McLeod-Savoie trade. Like, what's a realistic expectation for Savoie? That might be the question. Because I've seen some comparisons on the weekend. We're going to talk about them because there is one that should never be mentioned. We'll touch about that next.
The cheesy burger pizza is
Facebook. Big hello to all of you streaming. Our streaming numbers at sports1440.ca just growing massively the last few months. So thanks for those who listen wherever you're watching it. Also downloading the app. Appreciate that. And of course, hey, listen on the radio. The numbers for the station and the show have grown significantly, which is outstanding. That's what our goal was when we launched it. I felt there was a big void. And really, the only thing now you need to ensure it keeps going is sponsorship. So if there's anybody out there who wants to be part of the show, as part of the station, let me know. Gregor at sports1440.ca. And I got a lot of sponsors that can talk to you about if it works or not. So there you go. Now, let's go around the NHL. Brought to you by McDonald's. And it is 33 degrees outside. And so you can get a $1 cone. You can get a strawberry cheesecake McFlurry right now, but only through the week. And you're going to need one because it is hot. Maybe even get a water too while you're there. Only at McDonald's. And we welcome in from Winnipeg, good friend of the show, Jamie Thomas joins us again. JT, how you doing?
Jason, great. How about yourself?
Oof. Buddy, I'm good. You know what? I picked the right time to try to get back into exercising because, as you know, your legs get stiff. But all I have to do is go for a walk, and I'm limbered right up because it's so hot right now. It's like I'm warming up in a sauna. So that's the only it's the one big benefit because I've realized that the longer time you take off, the more it hurts when you get back in it. It hurts maybe the wrong word, just more stiff. Right? Looking a little geriatric to try to get it in out of a chair right now. So good thing there's no video of that in and out of the chair. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Winnipeg Jets, you know what? They had such a great year and then it kind of crashed and burned in the playoffs because their whole strength of their team got lit up. They were a defensive-minded team, the best in the league all year long, and then they just got dominated defensively by the Colorado Avalanche. And then you look at the offseason, JT, and you're like, well, look at the Jets. I don't think they got any better, and some would argue that maybe they got worse just because of the losses on the back end. What do you make of this offseason so far for Winnipeg?
Yeah, I think I can understand why people would see and view that. Like losing Brendan Dillon is big. First off, a great guy, but also a tremendous teammate. Outside of Adam Lowry, that's maybe your one other guy that you can count on. That when a teammate has to be defended, you would lean on Brendan Dillon for that aspect too as well. So that is, and of course the top 4 defensemen losing that. So and then you look at Sean Monahan, who you gave a first-round pick for. But I think it was more for the playoff run this year, and then you could hope that he was going to sign on. But I think 5 years was a little bit too long in the eyes of the Winnipeg Jets organization. And then I could see how that feels. But that being said, there are younger players within the organization that I don't want to say deserve, but it's almost like they've been jammed up. You've lost a lot of younger defensemen because you've had that log jam up in the National Hockey League with Nate Schmidt, also being up with the big clubs. So your top 6 defensemen are all pretty much set in stone every year. So now here's an opportunity for Logan Stanley. You could also say Ville Heinola on top of that. Ville Heinola probably was on his way to making the team last year, not necessarily in the top 6, but would have been one of the 2 extra defensemen on the roster. And of course, if any injuries happen, he steps in. So he was playing some of his best hockey last year. So there's this, I don't know what it's like in Edmonton, but obviously a lot of the criticism here is the Jets didn't play their younger players enough. Cole Perfetti. Yeah. So you now that all those complaining, that almost like, I'm not saying the Jets organization like, okay, now we're going to show the fans, but now the younger players will get their chance. It's just like, it's almost there it is. That second center spot is open at this point. So Brad Lambert, who had a tremendous year in the American Hockey League, a former first-round pick of the Jets, 30th overall. I think this opens the door for him. Does it open the door for Cole Perfetti in your top 6? And if you look last year, Jason, when Rick Bowness and his wife Judy had her health challenges, he took some time off. That was when Cole Perfetti played his best hockey last year. And it was in November, and I know it's earlier in the season, but I think he averaged just under a point a game in the 15 games that Scott Arniel filled in for Rick Bowness. And I think Arniel will be more inclined to play his younger players and give them more opportunities, because when Rick Bowness was here, he probably knew his window was limited. He probably saw the 2 years. I got to win now, so I got to go with my veteran players. So while it looks like the Jets don't look as good on paper as they did a year ago, it's opening the door for the younger players in the organization to step in and fill those slots. Is there plenty of time until training camp starts, the start of the National Hockey League season? Yes. Does Kevin Cheveldayoff have a trick or two up his sleeves? We've seen this before. Maybe there is a trade down the road here that he can make to kind of fill some holes. But in the meantime, he has said this is a chance for the younger players within the organization to say, hey, here's my opportunity. I better run with it should it present itself.
You look at, the Jets, and they're in a tough division. I've seen some rumblings about Nikolai Ehlers. He's entering the final year of his deal. So when you talk trades, Jamie, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that the guy that you think of potentially? What about Alex Iafallo, also a pending UFA?
Yeah. So, that was the rumblings going into the draft too, is that Nikolai Ehlers would be a possibility to maybe improve on the back end. But I'll go back to what Kevin Cheveldayoff said last year, and I'm not putting Nikolai Ehlers in the same stature as Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele. Kevin Cheveldayoff said last year, if he traded or one of those two players were out of the organization, that would leave a big hole within the organization, or two. As we all know, very hard to find number one goaltenders who play 65, 70 games a year. Very hard to find number one centermen, so they did the right thing and extended both players. Nikolai Ehlers kind of falls into that. Okay, if the Jets want to get quicker or they want to remain one of the faster teams, is trading Nikolai Ehlers the right idea? A guy that, when healthy, can get you 30 goals. Again, very hard guy to replace, but it's a good guy to trade. Should you be looking for a top four defenseman? If that's indeed what Kevin Cheveldayoff is looking. So, but to me, I think, having seen what happened last year and hearing Kevin Cheveldayoff before the draft, it doesn't seem like they're too interested in moving him. And Nikolai Ehlers has clearly not said that he wants to get out of the organization either. So I think he gets extended this offseason. What the term looks like, I don't know. But another guy that's been a big part of your group, your core group. And if you want to remain, if you losing that speed and his ability to play both wings, and maybe an opportunity in the top power play without Rick Bowness and a new power play coach this year. Maybe that presents itself for Ehlers this year as well.
Interesting. So, and I get it. They want to keep their guys. One of them on the back end, has ever since they acquired him. Like, some could argue at the time of the trade, they're like, "Oh my goodness, that's all they got." But in hindsight, the Jets might have won the Trouba trade. I think you can make a strong argument that they did. Yeah, just from Neil Pionk alone. He's a pending UFA. How important is he to this team moving forward?
He's really important. And I know like people will look at it and say he had a tough year last year, but let us not forget he lost one of his dear friends to that skate accident over in Britain a year ago. And that was one of Neil Pionk's best friends. And I don't know if the mental aspect is brought into this enough. But I think Neil Pionk is primed for a bounce back year for the Jets. And I think he went on his game. He's pesky. Connor McDavid would know a little bit about that. And I'm going way back now to 2021, the playoffs, but he's one of those guys that gets in your face. So I think Neil Pionk is important. Great guy in the room again, and is primed for a bounce back this year as well. And they're going to need him to, because they're going to be counting on him quite a bit with the younger guys. And I should also not leave out Colin Miller, who they brought in from New Jersey at the trade deadline last year, and they signed him to an extension as well for another right-handed shot, veteran presence type on the blue line. So there are lots of places for players to improve, but also to grab spots that are within the organization. Again, going back to that logjam that they had back on the back end.
Speaking of goaltending, Jamie Thomas joins us from Winnipeg. Connor Hellebuyck obviously was elite. He signed his big extension, did not have the playoffs that he wanted. Some of it was on the team defense. Some of it was on him. He plays a lot, Jamie. And, they got rid of Brossoit, who's one of the best backups in the league. And, they bring in Capo Kakin and Eric Comrie again. I don't know. Was this like the fifth time in Winnipeg for him? But, what do you mean?
I think it's fourth.
Fourth, okay. Is the plan for Hellebuyck, do you think, to play fewer than 55 games this year?
No, not that. I mean, Capo Kakin and Eric Comrie could play a role in that, but I don't think we could look at last year and go, okay, it was the amount that Connor Hellebuyck played, because of the quality games that they got from Laurent Brossoit a year ago, last season. So I don't think there was fatigue. I think I agree with you. There were some goals he probably would like to have back, although he will never admit it publicly. But a lot of it that was on the team defense that was, as you said at the beginning part of this, one of the best. They were one of the best defensive teams in the league. And I think a lot of that style of play was forgotten when they got into that series with the Colorado Avalanche. So I think if you tighten up defensively and remain focused on that, I think those grade A scoring chances, which it felt like every 5 minutes that Colorado was having one in that 5-game series, I mean, you shore that up, and then Connor Halley will look a lot better than he did in that opening round series. So I still think he's going to play 65 games. Now, that being said, with the Four Nations face-off and the schedule being tighter than in years past, there'll be a lot. They have a lot more back-to-backs this year. So whoever it is, Eric Comrie or Campbell Kakkonen, they're going to have their fair share of opportunities. But I still think Hellebuyck ends up playing 60 to 65 games this year.
How many back-to-back? The Oilers have 14. How many do the Jets have?
Yeah, they're up in the upper, the lower teens, but it's not like the Jets had a great schedule last year, no question about it, and that played a large role in everything. But it's going to be in the lower teens, but those are hard, especially on the road. But they will never. That schedule that Jets had last year was probably the best schedule that I've seen since I've been here, and that's been about 7 years. In terms of the back-to-backs and the days between games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they had a fairly decent schedule they did last year. All right.
Yeah.
Edmonton's schedules, they have more back-to-backs, but they also have 13 times where they play a team that's on their second half of a back-to-back, and I think 5 of those are when the Oilers play. So their back-to-backs isn't that crazy. They don't have a lot of super terrible travel. They play quite a few that are both in Edmonton, or they're in LA and Anaheim. That's you can't get much of an easier back-to-back as far as that goes. You stay in one hotel and you just bus it. So that's pretty.
And then you go to New York and you have the easiest get. Whenever the Jets go to New York, they jam the Islanders, Rangers, and Devils all together, and it's like the easiest time you'll have in terms of travel, because it's just they stay in New York and then just bus to Long Island and then bus over into East Rutherford too. So there's no stress in that aspect with the New York trip for sure. And then like Anaheim, LA, it's a bus again.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy. And with the Central Division, it's not that hard in terms of travel. The longest flight, I think, is 2.5 to 3 hours, which is not terrible.
Now, looking at this coaching change, how significant is that? Rick Bowness retired. I thought he did a pretty good job as an analyst. He's such a likable guy, but
he's so good, so great. Yeah.
Scott Arniel comes in, Jamie. Coaches learn from their first time as a head coach. I don't know if you've talked to him. Like, how's he going to be different? What's he going to do that's different? And how big of a challenge is it? You come from being an associate assistant coach to now being the head guy. That can be a hard transition.
Yeah, you're like that voice between, right? And when the head coach is the bad guy and you're the good cop, and I agree with you. But I think, and Scott has said this since being hired as a head coach, he learned a lot, and it's about the relationships that he's realized how important they are. Just look at what Rick Bowness has proved over the years, right? I remember, speaking of being on the panel, Kevin Bieksa was talking about how Rick Bowness was his best. He played his best hockey under him. So I think what he saw, how Rick dealt with the players on and off the ice, he learned a lot from that as well. And I feel like those relationships are there, especially with the defensemen and the younger players. So, and then clearly, I just think he learned so much and has grown from that. And that this was almost his job when and if Rick Bowness decided to step aside from the National Hockey League. So he's ready for this, learned a lot from his first time in Columbus, has paid his dues, worked his way. It took him a long time to work back to this situation. So I think there's enough there where he has built those relationships with the players on this roster right now and the younger players where he can have success playing both roles if he has to.
JT, always good to catch up with you, man. Enjoy the offseason. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, it's finally hot here too, man. So I'm glad we've got that, because we had so much rain here. It was getting ridiculous after a while.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay, buddy. All the best.
There you go. That's Jamie Thomas joining us from Winnipeg. So lots of changes in Winnipeg, specifically with their head coach, and they'll try to bring in some young guys, and it's always a challenge. Like you look at so you're Winnipeg, and you're like, hey, you know what? Like, hey, maybe Cole Perfetti's ready for more of an opportunity. I don't discount it, but you look and say, well, Edmonton, what do they do? They're not like Dylan Holloway's probably get more opportunity and Philip Broberg, but their main guys are all still here. Right. So like once you get into that winning mode, it's hard to keep up with the other teams. Because if you look at Winnipeg, a lot of people think that they took a little bit of a step back. Now, maybe they didn't. We'll see, but definitely perceived that way. Quick break. We got the 2-minute warning with Cam Tate. Kind of lots and lots of text to get to. 833-401-1440 in our UL index. That was Around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. And hey, you need to cool off. Dollar cones all summer long right now at McDonald's.
Hey, Elks fans. Yeah.
3 degrees in the capital city of Alberta today. Woo! Surrounding area. Get hydrated, kids. Get your sunscreen on. Enjoy it. You know what? We don't get that many days like this, so enjoy it while you can. And for those of you who don't have AC, guess what? It's a 2-minute warning brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. If you're thinking about it, now's the time to act. You'll be laying there in bed. You got the sheet on. Even with the sheet on, you're sweating. Feet outside. You and your loved one are like, "Don't touch me. It's too hot right now. I can't handle it." So, well, you want to spice up your relationship? Get a little AC. LegacyHeating.ca. No interest, no payments for 1 year on your AC unit. And it's time now for the 2-minute warning. Cam Tate, of course, a longtime journalist in town, and Cam has cerebral palsy. In a wheelchair, and as doesn't have the voice to be clear on radio, but with the wonders of technology, we take his words and his ideas, and now they become something you can listen to.
Well, hello, Jason. Hot out there today. So hot, my wheelchair overheated, and I wasn't it. Here you go. There could be a story circling around Remax Field and your Edmonton Riverhawks. Good day. Know what I'm saying. And the default action would be to exhaust every darn angle, even those upside down, to get to the bottom of the story. Their names, get prospective dates, call a few recognizable names for comment and reaction, then craft a nuts and bolts piece of what we know. But I ain't love saying it on the radio going to do that. Besides, it's too hot. Instead, I'm going to use the remaining time to celebrate what could be the story and comment all by myself on how great this is. Because it truly is. News reports over the weekend confirm the Riverhawks are getting a few phone calls about professional baseball coming to Edmonton. For me, that's a story all day long. Twice on Sundays. Double headers, if you will. And here's why.
The Riverhawks ownership and operational staff have created a cool but warm vibe down at Remax Field. If you've been to a game, you know what I mean. Affordable prices, entertainment everywhere, from the characters on the public address system to game day hosts to a video scoreboard that rivals any big league park, patio areas on the first and third base lines, a chance for families to run the bases, and so much more. Randy Gregg, along with Steve Hugo and the rest of the 22 investors, have given life back into that crown jewel of a baseball park. They leagued their summer college league, the Western Baseball League, in attendance. There are reports the Riverhawks had to turn fans away on Canada Day. How good is that?
Yeah, we all know that great line from that wonderful baseball movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. The Edmonton Riverhawks has done just that. They built it. People did come, and we have to celebrate. Many more could be on their way. 2-minute morning with Cam Tate. Jason Gregor Show, Monday, Friday, Sports 1440.
Breaker, which was very unfortunate for them. And they start the second half. They hosted Kamloops here for 3 days. You know what? Good crowds again. Beautiful weekend. Unfortunately for the Riverhawks, they only won 1 out of 2. But you know what? It's obviously extremely early on in the second half. I do like kind of the old school. It reminds me of the Trappers when you had the first half of the season, the second half of the season. I love it. So they'll have to get back on track. Kamloops suddenly is off to pretty good start. They had they were rolling. Edmonton, just kind of weird. Like on Saturday, they spanked them. What was it, 13-3? I think it was. So they'll get back on track. If you haven't been down to a Riverhawks game, I highly recommend going. Same with the Stingers. The Stingers are now in first place in the CEBL as they had another victory. They won on Friday over Vancouver in a first place matchup, and then were victorious again last night. Now they're back in action tomorrow on their home floor. Then they have 3 more road games, and then they wrap things up at the end of the month on home court, and then get to the postseason. But they're looking good. They lead the league with a record of 11-4. So the Riverhawks are good. The Stingers are good. The Elks, they sure could use a win, don't you think? Sunday should be a perfect day for football. If you look at the weather forecast, it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot all week, so they'll get to practice in it all week long. They should be used to it by Sunday. And I don't care how ugly it is. Just win the game. They have to find a way to win the game. They can't keep shooting themselves in the foot. They can't keep making key mistakes at inopportune times. They've had 2 weeks to look at film and say, hey, how can we get our best receiver more involved passing? I'll be curious. Are we going to see you're 0-4? Would it hurt to use Trey Ford, even if it's only for minimal snaps at certain points? What is he learning by not playing? I don't get it. So. Hey, guys, how much would a higher level of ball require the Riverhawks to raise prices, and at what risk? From James. Well, James, it's a fair question. And teams can poke around. The reason why the Edmonton Trappers originally left Edmonton wasn't because the baseball community didn't support them. It was because the Major League Baseball teams didn't like to travel. Right? You had Edmonton and Calgary, and they were way out of the way from anybody else. And then when Calgary lost their team, it was pretty much done. Right? You weren't going to have a road trip all the way up there for 3 or 4 games with that much travel. And teams just don't want to do it. So, I saw the report and then I was trying to look to figure out which league could you have them be part of that's realistic. And then you bring up a very good point, James, that if it's a little bit higher level of quality of play, but the cost becomes 30% more, are fans, do they care that much? Or they just like going to the ballpark? They've got a competitive team. It's really like a junior team, right? You can support junior hockey, know it's not pro hockey, and still really like it. And, the West Coast League is lots of young players. They might have a few guys get drafted in MLB, right? So to me, professionals, great for the right price. So I guess it would come down to me asking you, the listeners who go to the games, do you need to see pro ball, or is this level good enough for you? Considering the cost, considering the excitement, everything around it. I think it's a fair question. And one that I think it would be hard to find a pro league where the costs of because even right now in the West Coast League, the Riverhawks, they have to pay for teams to come up because they're really kind of out of the way. But you know what? The fans have bought in because the Riverhawks have given them a reason to want to go to the games. They're exciting games. They're cost effective. They have an unbelievable facility. The thing I love about Randy Gregg, everything he said he would do, he did. When he took over, him and his ownership group, they said they were going to improve the facility, and they have. Right? They made it even more family friendly because, kids running on the diamond, that never happened before. Small little thing, but it's huge. It's no different than the Elks when they do it. The young kid, they love being on that field to think, hey, the pros just played on there. Could you imagine if after an Oiler game, you were able to skate on the ice? Are you kidding me? I mean, obviously I know it's not feasible, but I'm just saying, look how excited. Because some teams get the opportunity. My son still talks about the fact they had played in the Timbits tournament. Well, maybe it wasn't Timbits, maybe it was U7. And they played, you could sign up and it was through the Oil Kings and you played a few games, half ice games, and then you went to the Oil Kings game that night. They still talk about getting to skate on the ice where the Oilers played. It's a big deal. And so it's no big deal that, it's no big just to get on the, and run around the bases, time yourself. I see parents out there, the kids, oh, hey, ready, set, go. And they run from first, to third, and they're like, oh my goodness, this is longer than I thought. So it's honestly, I'd have to talk to Steve Hogle about it because I have to look at the business plan. And then you find out, is it worth it? At the end of the day, is it worth it? I don't know. 833-401-1440. Hey, guys, I said front row behind the net for the Oil Kings at $600 a season. And these are future pros I'm watching. I love it. To me, it's the same for the Riverhawks from Big Easy. Yeah, it's a total good point. Hey, guys, the season Independent Ball League runs the risk of leagues fully interchanging teams. The WCL isn't going anywhere. If it's low A like Vancouver, well, then you're at the mercy of MLB and their hormones. And there's a price point at which it's not worth being a season seat holder. That one comes from Mo Lar. Yeah, exactly. Like I looked at Vancouver and yeah, you can be, single A great, but now your MLB team's got to stock it. You don't like right now the Riverhawks do their own recruiting. They go out and, their coach finds it and, otherwise it's the MLB team that runs it. And yeah, you're affiliated with them, but you know what? That affiliation could last 2 years and then what? Then you got to go back to the West Coast League and start all over again. Like, I don't know. It's an interest. I'm sure that they will look at all options, but you got to remember that Randy Gregg, one of their owners, he's like baseball was his first love. He was in studio with us. He loved baseball more than hockey. He had a chance to go play professional hockey, and that's why he did it. But he loved baseball, and I think this is his opportunity to be involved. And I think they will do the right thing, whatever it is. I think people see the crowds that they have on Canada Day, and obviously they don't have 9,000 every game. But guess what? That's going to be their goal: is to build up and have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 fans on a majority of nights now, and they're doing that more often than not. Then you start slowly. It's like, well, now we have 6,000 every night. Oh, now maybe we got 6,500 because it becomes more of a fun atmosphere. And it always helps when you got a winning team. No question about it. Hey, guys, I went to the Riverhawks. It was such a great game. It was close. They lost. I wish we get more teams coming up. It's a great league. Well, they got, there's lots of teams that, you got, I think there's enough teams right now. So it's not an in-competitive balance. That to me is because if you get more teams, but the other teams aren't that good, and then you're just spanking them, that to me is no fun. Right, like look at Kamloops. It was kind of an odd series because the games Kamloops won were close, and then when Edmonton won, they spanked them. But you've got 9 teams in their in the North Division, and then the South, and obviously the South isn't as unlikely to travel all the way up here, so I get it. Like there is a financial fee involved, but if there's only 8 teams, and in baseball you play. Think about that. If you play them all once in a 3-game homestand, well, there's 24 games. That's lots in baseball. You're used to playing the same team 2-3 nights in a row. It's great. Hey, guys, silly question. Do you think Randy Gregg's group has the money to be in the mix for the Elks ownership? I'm an Elks season seat holder, and I go to lots of Riverhawks game, and the atmosphere at Riverhawks blows the Elks out of the water from Brock. Hey, Brock, it's a very good point. And I'm telling you, the new owner of the Elks, when it's officially announced, that if they're doing their due diligence, they're going to the Riverhawks, they're going to the Stingers, and they're watching, okay, what are they doing that's working? And how can we incorporate this to football? And oh, by the way, what's the other thing those two teams are doing right now? They're winning on the field. It's kind of an important factor. And it is the one thing the Elks have obviously had a deficiency at for quite some time. Think about it. 8-32 in their last 40 games with Chris Jones as the head coach and the GM. Not good. Quick break. We'll come back. Coming up in the next hour, we are going to talk we're going to talk a little hockey. We'll go around the Pacific Division. We got lots more of your thoughts on and we're going to get into the Copa Americas. And because we got a lot of texts, people are fired up for this game, as you should be. Like, you get to see Messi. But Canada, they're not a massive underdog in this game. I think they learned a lot from their previous meeting against Argentina. That was the big one. So, that's how you gain experience. And that's what's needed here. They're obviously the underdog, but I don't think it's like a gross underdog. They're quick. I think the biggest thing for Canada, if they want to win tomorrow, when they get chances, like they had some really good, you got to finish. Because Argentina is going to get some chances. That's just a fact. So if you get a few, you got to bury them. Let's get to Declan Kruger and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by High Street Insurance, driven by people, not products. People taking care of people for 10 years, servicing Canadian businesses just like your own. Go to highstreetinsurance.com.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
40 update. We start with the Edmonton Oilers as the Oilers have re-signed forward Raphael Lavoie to a 1-year, 2-way contract with an AAV of $775,000 at the NHL level. The 23-year-old is coming off a season where he recorded a career-best 28 goals and 50 points in 66 games with Bakersfield. The Edmonton Elks have signed American Sean Oakman, Derek Moncrief, and Noah Taylor, along with national product Zach Matisse, a wide receiver, and global linebacker Les Morrow. Sean Oakman joins the Green and Gold after being released by the Toronto Argonauts on June 11th. The 6'9" lineman was the 109th Grey Cup winner in 2022 and a two-time East Division All-Star. MLB scores around the league right now. It is the Cardinals leading the Nationals 2-0 at the end of the fourth. Later on today, we will see the Guardians and Tigers, Rockies and Reds, Twins and White Sox, Rangers and Angels, Braves and Diamondbacks, the late game out in Arizona. And one final from earlier today was the Pittsburgh Pirates over the Mets 8-2. Wimbledon action from earlier today. It was Taylor Fritz beating Sasha Zverev in 5 sets despite dropping the first 2 sets. Luca Musetti also won his round of 16 matchup in 4, and Alex de Minaur, the 9th seed, got by in 4 sets, while Novak Djokovic, the 2 seed, got by 15 seed Holger Rune in 3. In the women's division, it was Barbara Krejcikova in straight sets over 11 seed Dominique Collins, 13 seed Yelena Ostapenko, 4th seed Alina Rybakina, and 21 seed Alina Svitolina, all getting by to the quarterfinals as well. News out of the NHL as the Washington Capitals have promoted Chris Patrick to their general manager, with longtime GM Brian McClellan staying on with the club as president of hockey operations. News out of the NFL as Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback Cameron Sutton has been suspended 8 games without pay for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy, according to the league earlier today. In hour 2, we will be joined by Sheng Peng of San Jose Hockey Now. I'm Declan Kruger, and this has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 14.
Lovely Monday afternoon. Hot. Woo! And it's going to get hotter all week long. So don't waste water. You never know. Hey, you don't want to be like Calgary. See that water mine break? And now they're on limited water basically all summer to figure it out. So you never know. So, hey, get out there and get out to a lake. Need to swim. It's fun. Suntanning, though, for those of you that love the suntan. Like, I know you can always tell when the serious suntanners are out, they carry their spray bottle with them and they just spray. Like, it's like they're Newman, right? And they say, hey, Kramer, you want to put a little butter on you? It's essentially what they're doing, right? Get it roasted nice and tight. So let's put on sunscreen. Enjoy it. Which I always like when we get the random text messages at 833-401-1440 in our email inbox. And hey guys, I'm curious. What's your thoughts on what type of clothing you can wear to work when it's this hot? We have a lot of guys who work outside our company, and most of them are just wearing underwear under their coveralls. Is that acceptable? They come to work with just shorts on, no shirt, and put their coveralls on. From Pete. Well, Pete, as somebody who worked in the oil field for many years, like I remember, like I actually took environmental health and safety and technology at NATE. It was a program where they actually paid you to go to school. No joke. We got paid $8 an hour. I know this is, I'm aging myself. We got paid $8 an hour to be in school the first semester. Then the second one was $9.50, and the third year was $11. I didn't make the third year. I was kind of bored on my skull, but yeah, I went to it. I remember it was on Global TV. I remember sitting in the house. I was probably like 23. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was like, oh, geez, let's try this. No, it wasn't great. But I did work in the oil field for a long time. And when it's hot out, you have to wear, steel-toed boots. You have to wear coveralls. So yeah, the only way to survive, for me anyway, was, wear no shirt, just wearing, boxer shorts or long shorts. Yeah, I don't see the problem at all. Now, are they walking into the building without a shirt on? Like, I don't know if I ever saw anybody do that, but I don't know. I guess it depends. I would, no shirt, no service, right? So, but if they're in their vehicle, like can you ride in your car? Like, it's too hot out to go with no shirt on. Your car's parked outside. You try to sit in your seat. Dak, you're burning. You can't do it. So you got to have a shirt on, I would think.
I got the peanut butter seats too, brown leather. So I can't be doing all that. I wish I could, but can't pull it off.
Yeah, like I think, but to me, if the guy walks into work, puts his coveralls on, and is wearing no tarp under his coveralls, I have no problem with that. That's the only way to survive. Do you ever work outside? You ever work in the oil field or anything, Declan? Did you have a real hard labor job in your life?
I did some summer labor stuff, but it was seasonal work. It was like with friends.
Like, what was it? Like, what was your most? Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
But it was always, as far as landscaping goes, I had it pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, landscaping when if it's summertime and you're on the end of a shovel on like a day like today, all day long, your hours are you're earning them. For anybody out there because I always, when I worked outside and I did ultrasonic testing for downhole drill pipe for many years, worked out at API Valve, right, on blowout prevention, different things like that. I will tell you that I would much rather work in minus 25 and minus 30 than plus 30 because there's no reprieve from the plus 30. Like it's so hard to cool off. You can't do it. At least when it was cold out, you know what, man, I'd be like, hey, we had to clean off some pipe or whatever. Well, you just work a little bit faster and okay, you get your body temperature up. At least you felt like, okay, I'm warm. Like obviously you had to dress warm, but I found there was a way to combat it. When it's the heat, you can't do it. At least for me, I was like, oh, like, and I hate being hot. Like it's the worst, man. I'm the one, I'll sleep with just a sheet on. And, other people, they've got like a, thick duvet. And I'm like, how are you possibly doing it? And it's like that weighted blanket trend now. What the hell's going on there? Like, no thanks. You want me to sleep with a 15-pound weighted blanket on me? Get out of here. But I know. So for anybody who's working outside today, our thoughts for you. All right. All those construction workers, right? Nowadays, you got to wear all the safety vests or just sweating bullets. So I know some of you are listening to the show in your earbuds right now. So kudos to you because we know it's hot. And anybody, like, imagine roofing at this time. Like, actually, we should. What do you think is the hardest job in plus 33? 833-401-1440. What's the hardest job in plus 33 weather? Well, let's be honest, plus 28 and above. Like, you get to 31, you get to 33, you're roasting either way. Either way. So, hey guys, I was there for the Riverhawks game Saturday. 5,700 people. Got out of there with 2 kids and an adult senior with parking and food for less than $150. The ball was good enough for us. Well, there you go. I would agree. So, hey boys, is that new park by Spruce Grove getting made? What level of that ball? Well, that's the prospects where they're going to play out of, and yeah, it's getting closer all the time. I'm hearing that it could be ready for next year. So we'll see. Guys, my main reason to go is the family affair. My kids don't care. They're not watching potential major leagues. They're out there having a blast, enjoying the day. And since they don't care, then neither do I. From Elvis. Well, I think that's exactly it. I think unless you're like a really astute fan of baseball, I'm not sure you're like, can you tell from the crowd if it's a 92 mile an hour fastball or an 89 mile an hour fastball? Can you really? Right. So they probably hit a little bit farther. They throw a little bit stronger, but for the app, like if AAA ball came here, yes, you'd know the difference, right? Just everything, how it, the pitcher, when it hits the catcher's glove, you'll notice the difference. When you have AAA ball players hitting one, you'll notice the difference. Sure. But from single A to here, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference, to be honest. I really don't. So it's a good, if I'm I got to talk to Steve Hogle before I say anything, but the offer to go to like a single A league would have to be very, very enticing to risk what they're building. Because keep in mind, this is only year number, 3 or 2? So year number 2? Maybe I think it might be 3. Either way, it's not long. And look what they built, right? Like it's just growing. So, and it's grown very well. Hey guys, landscaping is one of the hardest gigs there is, not for an old timer like me. Kudos to anyone doing that gig from Walter. Landscaping can be hard for sure. Hey guys, it's got to be roofing. You're working hard and you're entirely in the sun. From Gordon, I think roofing, like that would be at the top of my list. Is roofing in a week like this, right? Now, firefighters. When you're fighting there is that those raging grass fires and stuff. Well, any fire, I would think. Now the firefighters chime in. Is it harder at plus 30 or minus 30? Like you're obviously maybe not as, you're trying to stay warm, but then you're fighting the water, you're freezing. Like, I'm curious. I felt for me working in the oil field, I preferred minus 30 to plus 30. I'm curious about firefighters though. Where would that be? Guys, paving has to be the worst. The heat from the asphalt makes it even hotter from picks. Picks, good one. Good one. Oof. Yeah. And the smell, like the tar. God. I don't know. Deck, are you a sensitive? Like there's certain smells that just, I can't do it. And that's one.
Yeah. Hot asphalt is one of them. Oh man, there's so many. Like a lot of people love the smell of gas. Like people say that's like a scent they really like. Like I can't stand the smell of gas. I hate it. But also a part of it is
like low tide?
He's probably up there. He's probably high on the list. But like for me, like I smell gas and my anxiety spikes. Like something's about to blow up. That's all I can think about. So that's probably a big part of it. But yeah, like asphalt. Ooh, that's a tough one. I can't do it.
Hey boys, welding in the heat is very difficult. From Smitty the welder. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because you're all geared up. So yeah, that would be another one. Hey guys, try laying 10-inch blocks in this weather. Ooh, from Mikey. Oh, those you're carrying those things? Yeah, guys, concrete flat work. It dries so fast in the heat, you're just him-ponging all day. You're hipping along and not good. That might have been a yikes one. Hey guys, I did roof in this weather a few years back. We had to stop every 30 minutes to completely soak ourselves down with the hose. The only way to survive. No sun for sure from Will. Yeah, I think to me, paving, roofing, yeah, you might have my vote. It might be a co-vote. today. So kudos to all of you. Like, I couldn't imagine how much water you got to drink on today. Like, you're just out there just baking. Oof. Yeah. Hey, guys, framing a house can be brutal. Outside walls are up, building the inside walls. Don't get any breeze, and it's just a sweat box from Suitcase. Well, you know what? That's another one. I've never loved saunas. You're kind of, and I'm not claustrophobic at all, but you get in there and you're just like, okay, you're breathing. It's nice, but you got a towel on, maybe swim trunks, right? So I don't know, you feel a little bit breezier, but it is no good, man. No good. A lot of people are texting for concrete, thinking I've never done concrete, but I can see. Hey, guys, the Netherlands have it right. Employers cannot ask you to work construction or industrial jobs outside when it's above 30 degrees or in weather below zero. What? Below zero? Come on. I tell -5 isn't that bad, is it? Well, ask anybody who works in construction. Is -5 that bad? Now, I could see -20. You got to, especially when you got to do it with your bare hands, because you can't hold the stuff with your gloves on. So +30 though, that makes sense. I wonder how many people are like, you know what, I'm tapping out. Like I remember and I was a foreman for my crew for a while, and when I was in the oil field, and there are certain times in the summer where you just like your expectations on what you could do that day. I would just like, hey, you know what? If the normal day was you're supposed to do 100 and some pipe, well, it'd be like, hey, if we can get to 90 today, then that's a win. So take a little bit more breaks for sure. Hey guys, any job where you have to wear the fire resistant coveralls, the worst. They are hotter. You've never won those, have you, Deck?
I haven't.
I can tell
I
you.
haven't. I was looking into it also. It seems like for the Netherlands, it seems like the mean temperature, is like 4 degrees in January, February, December. So 0 is pretty cold for those guys. You know what I mean? Like that's 0 to us. That's shorts weather, but to them, that's freezing.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, might have to. Although, did you see the celebration they had? Oh my goodness, for Euros! Like they know how to party there. Some would say they go a little excessive, but still, it's Hey, Gregor, just have to say it's not close. Patch crew in paving from Blair. Oh, that's the one where you're out there and you're just patching up the asphalt all along the highways and different roadways with all the tar or whatever the proper term is. Like it's a tar, asphalt together. Oof. Yeah. Hey, Greggs, you're a farmer. What about shoveling grain? From Alan. Well, Al, if you're in one of those silos, the old ones that have no airflow, you're right. But that's where it's like, we don't have to get that done today. I would figure something else out. They're throwing hay bales, the square bales in +30 because you have to wear long sleeves. Otherwise the hay just rips up your forearms, right? Because you're tossing it, it's touching you all the time. So you have to wear long sleeves. Yeah. Farmers can attest that one's brutal. Hey, Gregor, it's the same with baggage handlers for airlines now. It's a certain temperature either way, they won't work outside. Huh. Really? That's got to be different for each city, I would think. Oh, now this texter, unknown name, you got to send us your name. Guys, I was working in an attic all day today. 50 degrees and dark. Brutal. Well, you know what? Just when we think someone has it bad, someone reminds us. It can always be worse. Hey, we'll come back. We'll get you, we'll talk a little hockey to get you some ice in your veins, cool you off a little bit. We do have some text. Gregor, what do you think is a realistic number for McLeod-Savoie in the American League this year? That's an excellent question. Because it is hard for a young player to put up big numbers in the American League. It's a tough league. A, you got to be on a decent team. B, you got to make sure you get ice time. So 68 games. Oh, man, if you get 50 points as a first-year AHL player, I think that'd be really good. That might even be even high. So I got to go back. That's a good question. I'm going to go back and look at like rookies in the American League. What have been some good numbers lately? Quick break. We'll return and we'll talk about a team run by a former Edmonton Oiler. And are they ready to make significant improvement, or is it just being window dressing? We'll find out next. This is the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game all summer. Hey, maybe you need a break from sitting outside. Well, guess what? Use the promo code SUMMER. Pretty easy. Promo code SUMMER, PlayAlberta.ca, and you'll get a free $50 casino wager.
Christensen Communities
1440 Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Hey, Greg, do you happen to know how hot 33 Celsius is? I think it's like, if I'm doing the math in my head, I think it's like 92. But don't quote me on that. Deck will look it up at the online from Celsius to Fahrenheit. I think 33 is 92, but it's close enough.
Yeah, 91.4.
Ooh, hey, there you go. Nice. Okay. All right. So, yeah, 90. I couldn't even round up. I guess I was a little high enough. See what I'm doing wrong, but there we go. Let's talk a little Pacific Division, brought to you by Action Electrical. And hey, you know what's hot? Is there right now? You got solar? Oh, you'll be loving it. What would be cool is your bills, because of all the heat and all the solar, you'd be saving all the energy. So go to actionelectrical.net and they can help you get it on your residence or a commercial building. Shen Peng joins us now from San Jose, beat reporter for the San Jose Sharks, and they've had a pretty interesting off season. Of course, Shen writes at Hockey Now and NBC Sports. Shen, welcome back to the show, man. It's been an interesting off season for the Sharks. There's obviously a lot of excitement. You get a number one overall pick, and a lot of people thought he was the obvious consensus number one choice in Macklin Celebrini. They bring out Joe Thornton, who was a number one overall pick, albeit not by the Sharks, but still, was a huge face and presence in that franchise for a long time. Are the Shark fans, like, it's been a tough slog here, Shannon. I kind of look at, like, they're barely in the middle. I don't even know if they're in the middle of the rebuild, because for the first 3 or 4 years when they missed the playoffs, the organization kept making moves. It felt like they weren't in rebuild, and it's like they finally committed to the rebuild. And so it's going to be a long slog. But what's your sense of Shark fans and where their team's at right now?
Hey, Jason, how's it going? Sharks fans, well, for the first time in, I think, 5 or 6 years, are really, really excited. Just a couple examples of that. They have a draft party, and last year, it's a free party. Last year, I think they distributed about 5,000 tickets, which is about a third of SAP Center. This year, they distributed, I think, 17,000 tickets. Now, not everybody shows up, but still, that's 3 times the interest there, right? Another example, a development camp, prospect scrimmage, Macklin Celebrini's first game. Last year, that prospect scrimmage game was for free at TechCU Arena, where the Barracuda play. This year, they charged $25 to $40 a ticket, and they got about the same attendance. And so there's definitely excitement, a palpable excitement. Like you mentioned, the rebuild has been a very long slog, but finally, suddenly, you get a guy like Celebrini, and things kind of make sense. You have a guy that's projected to be your number one player in a Celebrini, and then Will Smith maybe fits in more as your number 2 player, and so things start to make sense. And so, yes, it is in the middle of it, but for the first time, though, there is like a very, very obvious hope.
Now, there's hope, but, hey, there was hope a lot of off seasons in Edmonton, and then Oilers fans got their hearts broken year after year after year. Like the Sharks, they're not making the playoffs next year. Let's just be honest, right? But they convinced Tyler Toffoli. I look at what they're doing, at least as smart, to say, hey, we know we're going to take some lumps. Let's at least have some veterans to try not to make the lumps as devastating long-term for young guys.
Yeah, I think that's a concerted move this summer. I think they could have done a better job of that last summer in terms of acquiring more kind of hard to play against players, guys like Barclay Gaudreau, Ty Dellandrea, Carl Grundstrom, guys like that. Guys that will, when you're down 3-2, down 4-2, will block a shot, will keep you in the game. And they were definitely missing that last year, which is why they had a minus 150 goal differential, which is the worst since the 1993-94 Ottawa Senators. So that's a long time. That's a really, really bad team that the Sharks put out last year. So they did no favors to anybody on the ice there, or for the coach or whatnot. And so this Sharks team should at least be, like you said, I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but they should at least be more competitive.
You meant now Barclay Gaudreau didn't like how that move went down, Sheng, but he was highly regarded in San Jose beforehand. I get maybe he just didn't like kind of how it got taken out of his control, but I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to him or not. Has his frustration calmed down a bit now that he looks and says, okay, you got Toffoli, you got some other guys, I'm going to be looked upon as a leader here?
Yeah, it is telling that we haven't spoken with him yet as media, and that move happened like 3 weeks ago. But though, all signs so point to that he's going to be at camp and he's going to be on board. I mean, I think it's actually in a lot of ways a big sign of respect that Mike Rear paid him, that he took on the whole contract and is not asking him to come to the Sharks at a reduced rate, which a buyout would have done. And so anyway, with Barkley too, so Mike Grier has said that he feels like it's going to a situation where Barkley's accepting kind of the situation, right? Tyler Toffoli actually said a couple of days before Tyler actually signed with the Sharks that he was hanging out with Barkley and was trying to pick Barkley's mind about just San Jose and what's like to live there and things like that, right? Tampering, right? But anyway, though, that from everything that Tyler said too, that everything is fine with Barkley and he thinks that Barkley is excited and going to be excited to be here. So I just think for Barkley Gaudreau, who has been in the conference finals for 5 of the last 6 years, going back to the Sharks in 2019, that this is a huge, huge adjustment and definitely not what he signed up for when he signed with the Rangers. But I think he will adjust.
Logan Couture, is he going to play?
Good question. Your guess is as good as mine. I will say that the Sharks have maintained since the exit interviews in April that Logan wouldn't skate till July. And he's supposed to have started skating already. I had to check in on that to double check that that's actually happening. But everything that we've heard in the lead up to this month was that he was feeling better and that he was ready to start skating in July. But it is an open question. And so obviously you sign a guy like Alexander Wenberg, who is a center, good two-way center, even a Gaudreau who has a lot of experience playing center. So I think the Sharks are preparing for life with or without Couture.
Sheng Peng joins us from San Jose Hockey Now, discussing the San Jose Sharks. And, their back end, you got Vlasic. He's got 2 years left in that deal. They went out and they got Jake Wallman, and they got a second to take him at $3.4 million. Mario Ferraro, Jan Ruda, Matt Benning, I think will fill out. They got Ty Emberson. So what do you make of their defense core? And then I guess their goaltending, is it going to be split between Vanacek and Blackwood? What are you hearing? What do you think?
Well, first, the goaltending is easy. I think it's a pretty talented group between Vanacek and Blackwood. We'll just kind of see who emerges, but both of them have taken the number one load at times over their career and done well, both in Washington and New Jersey. The defense, though, is a bit rough, and they could use another top-four defenseman, but, who couldn't in this league? A lot of those top-four defensemen, clear-cut guys, went really fast in free agency, but they definitely could use another one. You have Wallman and Ferraro, who will probably eat most of the minutes up right now. And we'll just have to see. Now, they do have Henry Thrun and Shakir Mukhamadullin. And so those are a couple of young prospects that they like a lot. Mukhamadullin projects as a top 4 guy in the future. But, of course, he's only played 3 initial games. So we'll see how quick he is to that.
You look at, Mike Grier and what he's done. How patient do you think ownership is going to be under because realistically, San Jose is a few years away here from competing. They probably need another 2 or 3 top 5 picks.
Right. Well, I suspect that this year is going to be a big test for Mike. Last year was a total, in every single way, it was an abject failure, besides getting the number 1 pick and being having the best draft lottery odds because you were that bad, but it shouldn't have been that bad. And I think that is a reflection on Mike Grier. That is a reflection on David Quinn, who was fired. And so if they have another year like last year, just out of games and that kind of goal differential, then we might be talking about Mike might be feeling the heat. But if this team can be, again, it's not expected to make the playoffs, so just competitive and start building and get better and better, then I think that he'll have a couple of years of runway.
You mentioned coaching, and man, I heard from a lot of people that there was a real lack of preparation, and an outline specific to defensive zone structure, for instance. They bring in a real young coach here who, from everybody that you talk to, man, this guy's a motivator. He's very committed. How much of a difference do you think he can make? And what's your early expectations of the difference he will have behind the bench?
Well, he will have more talent to work with than David Quinn did. Like I said, like a lot of the guys that the Sharks did bring in terms of that hard to play against mentality, they did not have that. And a lot of players that they brought in last summer, your Mike Hoffman, your Philip Zadina, they didn't really have that kind of mentality, right? And so I think that Mike Grier has sort of shifted that and brought in players that can play more of that style. I think that you can argue on Quinn's side that they were just trying to get through the season. So installing a lot of structure and that sort of thing for this team wasn't going to do anything. Now that might be his side. The players and other people might have different views of it. Obviously, Mike Grier had a view of it, and that's why he let David go. But anyway, though, with Warsawski, yeah, he definitely is more hard on his sleeve than a David Quinn. We could see that in his introductory press conference when Ryan Warsawski started tearing up when in his introductory speech, just talking about all the people that helped get him where he was. And so that's different. I'm not saying that that's bad. Maybe that's something that might kind of move the team a little bit and get a little bit more kind of engagement from the team. And also too, Ryan has said, I think he recognizes that, structure can improve and things like that. And like you said, he has more kind of horses to work with here that will help him implement the structure. So we should see a more disciplined, structured Sharks team this year.
What about some of their young guys, Eklund, Bordelot? Where are they at in their development in your eyes?
I think Eklund had an excellent season. I mean, really considering the mess of last year, right? Like this could have been a season that could have, for a lot of young players, would have really kind of set them on the wrong direction. But I think that William is so kind of mentally strong, stoic almost, right? That he just kind of kept at it. And I think that he came through that season, not unscathed, but came out the better for it. And so I think he projects to be, in my mind, he's going to be a solid second line winger and a kind of guy that you win with. Because even though he's smaller and whatnot, he competes. He'll play defense, he has defensive conscience, and all those kind of things. So I think that he is going to be a very useful player. And in the end, granted, it was a very, very bad team, and he had a lot of playing time, but he ended up with 40-plus points, which is not too bad on the mess of the team that the Sharks were. I think Thomas Bordelot and Daniel Gushin, I think I put him in the same kind of bucket. And there are guys that there are question marks about them because of their size, because of their sort of their defensive conscience, all those kind of things, right? But the Sharks will have opportunity in those spots and sort of that top six, right? Like right now you see like their top six, you have Eklund, you have Toffoli, and Fabian Zetterlund, who should have spots, right? But kind of maybe a little more open after that. And so we'll see if they can kind of apply what they've learned in the AHL. They both had very good AHL kind of careers or whatever, but they've got to take that next step, which is always sort of that question with smaller offensive leaning players.
Jen, great rundown, man. As always, we appreciate it. Enjoying the summer in San Jose. Have a good one.
Yeah, talk to you soon, man.
There you go. That's Sheng Peng joining us from San Jose. The Sharks, well, they made a lot of moves. There's really only one way to go. I guess technically they could stay in the bottom. But you look, Toffoli's in now. They bring in Wenberg. They bring in Barclay Goodrow. Ty Dellandrea, Macklin Celebrini. So there's 5 new forwards. On the back end, Jake Wallman is here. Vanasek. They might get Couture back. He barely played last year. So they'll have a lot of new players. Just not sure they'll have enough good ones to, I think they're still a bottom 5 team. And honestly, where they're at, they should be a bottom 5 team. If they're not, it kind of screws them over. Now, I asked the question, so I want to read it. Came from his firefighter, Brent. Hey, guys, the worst part of -30 fires is ensuring your water is constantly moving out of the lines and in the pump so it doesn't freeze. Just like people, trucks don't want to work well in cold weather. Also, sometimes your self-contained breathing apparatus face piece can freeze up when it's that cold. If you're the pumper operator, you don't move around too much, you get cold really fast. It's the worst. If you're actively working on the fire ground and moving, it's not bad. I'd vote for someone being tougher, though, for body temperature regulation. As similar to other industries, when you're wearing your gear, there's no easy way to cool down except to take it off. Now, woodland, wildland fires, that's a different story. Really tough work from Brent. Oh, yeah, I can imagine. So hopefully there is nobody out there who has to be firefighting today or even this week because it'll not be good. I saw actually, there's that people on the south side, 2 people had their houses burned down last night. So that, just the thought of it's brutal. So hopefully none of that. Everybody be smart. We'll take a quick break. We'll return. We got lots of texts, some thoughts on Matt Savoie, but also we're going to talk about the Stingers and the Riverhawks and what this week means for the Edmonton Elks. The Edmonton Elks, of course, take on Ottawa on Sunday. The Elks are coming off a bye week. They've added some new faces again on defense, brought in some veteran guys. I'm kind of curious to see, what's that going to mean? Like, these are veteran guys. It shouldn't take them long to get up to speed in the terminology. They understand the game. Edmonton, and so it begs the question. Like, remember when they didn't re-sign Jake Ceresna? Everyone's like, why is this team not re-signing Jake Ceresna? I don't get it. Well, then look what happened. Now they're chasing their tail, trying to get some pressure from the defensive line. Oh, geez, who could have saw that coming? So that's why, you can't just keep bringing in new faces every week and think it's going to change. And that's kind of been a constant thing here. That's a little bit of the MO of Jones as a GM. I think when the new ownership comes in, I think there's going to be a conversation for somebody, because I'm going to get, so they're going to have a new owner. The new owner is step one. The president of that team has to be somebody who has a business acumen and somewhat of a decent understanding of the football side. I think that's going to be a key for the long-term success of the Elks. 343, Jason Gregor, Declan Cougar with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook, as always, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Legacy Heating and Cooling.
along a lovely, sunny Monday. The text line is just humming today. I love it. 833-401-1440 in our well inbox. Hey, Greg's, Fahrenheit because you're old from Brad. Well, I am older than I used to be. That's for sure. But I will say, to be honest, many years ago, because I got sick of them, like, I don't know what it is. So I looked up just this. I memorized specific ones, right? Whereas 30 is 86. I'm like, you know what? No problem. I can remember that. I'll have no problem with it. So away we go. And then I kind of just go up a little bit from there for each one. So that's why when I guessed 92, or what did I say? 92 is 91.4. It's just more of a close guess, right? Because then it's like almost 1.3 or 4 after that. And 20, I think, is like 68. Because a lot of people, hey, it's 75. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I can't even guess. So after many years of feeling like an idiot, I just said, I'll just memorize 2 numbers. And then I can kind of give a ballpark after that. So 30 is 86 and 20 is 68, which is very easy to remember when you think about it. They're just reverse numbers. And then I kind of go up from there a little at a time. So that's, I like numbers, but I just, after a while, you'd see them. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what is that? So that's why, like, when you get into 100, man, it's like, oh, gross. Like 33 to me, I'm like, can I tap out here? Like that's too high. But you get into hundreds and stuff like that. Like now we're talking like 36, 37. No thanks. Not at all. Hey guys, I've been to over 20 Riverhawks games. I love it. Great ball, cheap drinks, awesome food. The nights and the firework Fridays is my favorite night out with the wife and the kids. All that said, I would love to see AA or AAA, but I won't attend if it means my 150 night out jumps to 250. Riverhawks are a great product as is. Also, as an electrician, I've been in the attics during the summer. I've re-roofed my garage last week and glad it wasn't this week. But in the Genie's power plant, 12-4 pulling cable and coveralls. Air temp close to 60. Something I don't ever want to do again, Craig. Ooh, gross. Yeah, you're in the power plant, man. Like, there's no way to escape that. So, gosh. So, kudos to all the ladies and gents out there today, slugging it out in the heat. Because sometimes, even if you're inside, depending on the building, if it doesn't have AC or some of those like another job that we didn't mention, Deck. I did sandblasting for 1/2 morning of my life. I tried it, sandblast. I couldn't do it. It wasn't even hot out. It was like, I don't know, 20 degrees. Not crazy hot, but not like, oh my God, I'm dying here. And I did it for a half an hour. And I remember I was in this big pit, basically, right? You got your hose and it's just like you're sandblasting. I was like, I am out. I'm like, and you know what? Lucky enough, there was other jobs available that I could go to. That's the only job that I've ever quit in my life. I think it was lunchtime. I made it through the first coffee break, sweating bullets. And when it came lunchtime, it was my first day in the job. And I just walked out. I didn't even, you know what? I didn't get paid for the half a day. I was like, you know what? That's the exchange. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say, hey, I'll be back. I walked out in the lunchroom and I'm like, I ain't coming back. I can't do it. It was the worst.
So when you say quit, you mean like that was the only job you've ever quit with malicious intent?
No, I'm trying to. Because I went back to school. So I guess technically, okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to think like the other option is you've just been fired from every other job, right? So
that's true. That's very true. So yeah, like when I was in the oil field, there was others where I kind of moved. But to me, I guess like I just up and quit. Like sometimes you work at a job for many years and it's good and you're just like, you know what, I need a change. So I guess that was the only one where I didn't give it much of a chance. But to me, usually you would have a conversation with someone. Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to leave, yada, yada, yada. But no, that was one where, well, it's your first day. I don't really know anyone. Like they say, hey, here you go. You can sandblast all of that. There's like, I don't know. There's these big, I don't even know what it was. And you're just like, there was never ending, right? Like you finish the one and then the front end loader comes in and he takes it out and then he brings in another one which is fine. But I'm just like, I can't do this every day of my life. So anybody out there who's sandblaster, kudos to you. Because I couldn't do it. Now, some people couldn't do some of the jobs I did either. So it all depends. There's just certain things like I hate like that grimy sand feel. I didn't like it. Couldn't do it. So you ever quit a job?
I've never quit a job like that. Every job I've ever had has been.
So you lasted more than. So you but if you quit after 2 weeks.
No, sorry. It has been like where I put in my 2 weeks and like
at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. I've been pretty blessed. I've had some pretty good jobs. I'm obviously pretty young. I haven't worked too much. Like I don't have a lifetime of experience.
I think I was 20 or 21 at that point, right?
Yeah.
Try
like
a few jobs.
Yeah, there was nothing like I never had anything where I just had to like after a day. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'll tell you one. Sorry, because there's one. When I was like, I think 18, I got hired on to like do the baggage handling at an airport for a summer.
Yeah.
And I went to the training for that, and it was just the most depressing, like end of the line, stuck in a rut job ever. No disrespect to anyone who does that, of course, but it just was not for me. And I did the training, and after the training, I said, yeah, I told them straight up, I was like, I can't do this. I'll finish the training, but I can't do it. And that was the closest I've ever come to quitting a job.
Oh, so you never even started?
No, I never started. It was I couldn't do it. It was so I can't even describe it, Jay. It was
like like the back. Aren't you just going out there? Like I see them all the time when I'm on the plane, right? They come out, they drive their little truck, wheel up there, they unload the baggage, and they take it inside.
Like there's there's this whole back like warehouse shed area.
Oh, I've been in the back once because my bag got got somehow misflighted or whatever. And so I went back. They said, hey, it'll be ready. We'll deliver to you in a few days. And I lived on the south side. I said, can I just come pick it up? They're like, yep. So I walk in. They're like, oh, just come in the back. And, here we are. And you can find it quicker. And so, and I was like, I got to see behind the curtain. And I just saw bags and bags of luggage. And I'm just like, God, whose luggage is this?
And everything was gray, right? It was just gray and desolate. It was so depressing.
Well, it was basically all cement floor.
That's what I'm saying.
And I didn't even notice that. I was more so, again, I wasn't working there. I was just more so, I was amazed that they let me go back there because I felt like I'm getting to see in this glorious place of all the missing baggage. And I've never forgotten it. I'm just like, you know what? It's a lot of missing baggage. And you know what they say? They say there's a lot that are unclaimed. And I'm like, what? Who doesn't like, because they'll deliver it. And some people just, I think some people, maybe they tell their insurance that they don't want it back. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get insurance through this. But I'm like, well, how can they get insurance then if the airline says, no, we found your bag. We have your bag. It's here. We'll deliver to you. And they deliver, they go once or twice and they don't. And then it's like, oh, screw it. And I'm like, well, who doesn't claim their own? Like, you must have some real bad luggage if you don't want to claim it. So I found out that was odd. Very odd. Hey, guys, try the engine room of a warship. The smell of oil and GP5 fuel, all while getting tossed around in heavy sea. Oh, yeah, dude. Andi? Nope, we got that one from Andi. And I have another one from the Aussie who talked about, I got to read this one for tough jobs. Because, hey, there's different. Hey, guys, a sheep shearer. They're going 8 hours every day, dragging the animal and holding them still and shearing them. You have to wear long pants. In Australia, it's about 35 degrees above for most outdoor jobs. From Lost Aussie. Yeah. It's a different level, right? You see it on TV, right? They grab the sheep. Now, they're pretty quick at it. But yeah, you're sweating. Although, I wonder, some people, if you get used to it, if you work every day and it's always that hot out and you're just there, because I go to Texas. I'm like, how do they live here? Right? You ever been to New York in August or Toronto? Like the humidity. My neighbor Jason just got back. He was in Montreal for 5 days. He goes, oh, it was so hot and so humid. He goes, it comes back here and he goes, yeah, but it's a dry heat. I will take the dry heat all day. He goes, 25 degrees there in the humidity is way worse than here in 30 degrees. So I'll do it because I remember going to New York and you literally you have to, if you go out for the day, you almost have to, go into the change room, take your shirt off and put it onto the blow dryer just to dry it off. It's unbelievable. But people must get used to it. Right? I wonder if your body adapts. If that's what you're raising, I got to think it's kind of, you're born into it. You just get used to it. It's like us. I think if you're born in Canada and it's cold, you don't love it, but you get used to it. Some scientist out there must know the answer to that. Hey, Greggs, I'm curious about the Elks. If they lose to Ottawa, would you make a coaching change? It's a good question, Steve. They're this far down the road in negotiating for a new ownership group. I'm going to guess, and this is only a guess because they're very quiet on this, that usually when you're going through a sale, it's not like you're like, okay, you're going to make the big decision to fire the coach or the GM, yet I'm going to take over the team in a month or 6 weeks. No, thanks. Right? Usually it's like, okay, we're far enough down the negotiation line. No big decisions can be made. You can't add new advertising costs or anything like that. That's normally how it is in other sales. So my guess is no, unless they're having the talk and this guy says, yeah, you know what? You can get rid of him because I'm going to anyway. So whatever. But then now you're adding an extra cost because you're going to, unless they're just going to promote someone from within. I guess they could, but who are they going to promote from within? I guess G. Roy Simon could become the GM, but do you want to do that? Unless he's just the interim. Maybe you do it as an interim basis, because I think if you get rid of Jones in both jobs, you're going to want to do a proper search. And the best way to do the search is in the offseason when the best candidates are available. So I guess long answer, I'd say probably not. I don't. The new owner might be like, let's see. Hey guys, who's buying the Elks? Well, my last understanding was there was two groups. There was one group of a single owner, and then another group of about 8 or 9 guys, and local guys who care. They're all local and they all care about the community. And I had asked some members of the one group if they would partner up with the other sole ownership group, and I was told no. So I think the sole owner, my understanding was, I think pretty close. I think Carius reported he had heard that it was pretty much a done deal. So, but until it's signed, it's never a done deal. We'll see. I've got a lot of people talking about their best ways to quit a job. I see those videos out there, but I always wonder, I'm like, okay, so you're 20 and you're 21, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to video my job, whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay, but now it stays out there. And then the next job you go to get hired at, maybe they won't look, but what if all of a sudden they're like, oh, I remember that guy. He was the guy or gal who made a big thing about their firing. I'll pass. So always be aware. If you put it out there, now you're stuck with it. Let's get to Declan Kruger in a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Booster Juice. And summer will be a blast with the return of a fan favorite. Ooh, sports fans, they love the return of fan favorites. It's one of your favorite things. Well, the watermelon wave explosion is back. Download the Boosters Reward app today and order one only at Booster Juice.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
And for your Sports 1440 update, we start with the Edmonton Oilers, who have re-signed forward Raph Lavoie to a 1-year, 2-way contract with an AAV of $775K at the NHL level. Edmonton Elks making moves as they have signed Americans Sean Oakman, Derek Moncrief, and Noah Taylor, along with national product Zach Matisse, who is a wide receiver, and global linebacker Les Morrow. Sean Oakman joins the club after being released by the Argonauts on June 11th. He spent the past 3 seasons with the Argos, where he won the 109th Grey Cup in 2022 and was a 2-time East Division All-Star. MLB scores around the league, just one game going on right now. The Cardinals leading the Nationals 4-0 in the top of the 8th. Guardians and Tigers set to go this hour in about 40 minutes. Rockies and Reds, Twins and White Sox, Rangers and Angels also on the dock. And the late game will see the Atlanta Braves in Arizona to take on the Diamondbacks. One final from earlier today saw the Pittsburgh Pirates over the Mets 8-2. Wimbledon scores from earlier today was Barbara Krejcikova, Lena Svitolina, and Yelena Ostapenko all getting by their round of 16 matchups in straight sets. Krejcikova, the 31st seed, over the 11th seed. Ostapenko and Svitolina over qualifiers. The other round of 16 match in the women's draw today saw Alina Rybakina getting by Anna Kalinskaya via walkover. Men's side of things, 9th seed Alex Dimanor and 25th seed Lucas Musetti got by in 4 sets. Sasha Zverev fell in 5 sets to American Taylor Fritz despite winning the first 2. And 2nd seed Novak Djokovic won in straight sets over 15 seed Holger Rune. News out of the NHL as the Washington Capitals have promoted Chris Patrick to general manager. Longtime GM Brian McClellan will stay on as president of hockey operations. And former Blue Jays outfielder Raul Mondesi has been sentenced by a Dominican court to 6 years and 9 months in prison, plus being fined $507,000 for corruption during his time as mayor in the city of San Cristobal. Up next is more of the Jason Gregor Show. In Hour 3, we'll be joined by Wanye Gretz of Oilers Nation and Andi Petrillo of CBC Sports and One Soccer. I'm Declan Kruger, and this has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440, Stingray Radio Station. CKJR broadcasts from
Always look for the positives. Welcome back. It is Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook, as always presented by PlayAlberta.ca. You can go there right now. Use the promo code SUMMER. You'll get a free $50 casino play at PlayAlberta.ca. And tomorrow night, Lotto Max, $50 million. +2 Max Millions at PlayAlberta.ca. Alberta.ca. Jason Gregor alongside Declan Kruger. We welcome into the studio. I haven't seen him for a while. Wanye Gretz. How you doing? Did you need like a weekend morning to get over the Game 7 loss? That's 2 in your career.
It's been a while, Gregor.
Yeah.
It's been that was a weird Monday last week with no show.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to get it all out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, I'm sure you're tired of talking about it, but I didn't feel that sad. I don't feel like the show is over. I feel like this is a multi-season arc. Like when Friends season 6 ended, you knew season 7 was right around the corner. I feel the same way about our friends on the Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the show is over.
You don't think so? You think the Oilers will be have another long playoff run in them? And I think most would agree. Like you look, people have them as the favorite to win the cup. Like you look at the moves they made on paper, it's good. But the biggest wild card that the playoffs has is and the regular season. And people, the regular season means nothing. I'll politely disagree because the regular season is 82 games where you to work on some things, gain confidence, all those sorts of things. But also, a regular season injury can severely impact the playoffs.
I think when you look at that season on the whole, from the beginning of it to being at the bottom of the league with San Jose to 16 wins in a row, like that's got to be the most entertaining modern day Oilers season, period. Like I can't think of a season that had more ups and downs and twists and turns. It must be the best to date.
Well, and not only for Edmonton, I talked to a lot of people who weren't fans of Florida or Edmonton or Dallas or the Rangers and said, you know what, man, like the playoffs, usually everyone's like, oh, the first round's awesome. And then it kind of peaks and it fizzles out. That was not the case. The first round was good, but there was really no upsets. The best teams won. And then you had a lot of good teams. So now the second round was good. And then the third round was good. And the final, obviously it was 3-0 and people thought it was dead. And then it's 3-3 and you're like, oh my God, it's a Game 7. It's 2-1. You can't get any closer than that. So yeah, I think for hockey overall, and it also helps I don't care what league it is, when your best player in your league is in the final, that's when you get non-hockey fans watching. And even hockey fans of other markets are like, now some of them tune in, like if you're a Calgary fan or a Canucks fan or a Leafs fan, or they're like, hey man, Buffalo, you're like, I kind of want them to lose. I say Buffalo because they lost, they got Eichel instead of McDavid. And then they lost Eichel a few years later. But you know what? And that to me, as long as people are watching, that's good. They can root for who they want or who they don't want to win. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, I think the NHL, you saw their numbers. It's the highest numbers they've had in a long, long time for viewership.
And also, I think even in the bubble year when Tampa Bay came in and won in our arena, it was such a weird time, right? Like you really got to see Edmonton in the arena district on full display with the moss pit, then the additional event center there in the corner that they made, and having the world's media come into Edmonton and see us in all our glory in June. I think we're doing stuff for our city's pride and image and undoing damage that had been on the books for 18 long years, Gregor.
Yeah. So it was, the Oilers, and hey, by the way, the Oilers did make a deal today. Raphael Lavoie has signed a deal with the Oilers. It's $7.75 in the NHL. He has he gets guaranteed, I think it's I gotta look. It might be guaranteed $225 or $250 in the minors. Raphael Lavoie is a player now who, you know what? He had 28 goals, 50 points for the Condors. He's right on the cusp, but can he get, like, there's lots of guys who are cusp NHLers who never fight. Now, sometimes it's just the organization they're in is deeper than another organ. Like if Raphael Lavoie was in San Jose right now, he would probably play a lot easier on that team. Maybe, not a guarantee. Just, he might get 30 or 40 games instead of 3 or 4. Because Edmonton's a deeper roster, right? So that'll be his challenge. And, I think Raphael Lavoie, Borgo, Savoie, well, they're all right shots and they're all right wingers. So we'll kind of have to see what shakes out there. But, those are guys who, the competition, like you're Raphael Lavoie, and you're thinking, oh, I'm close. Oh, geez, they just traded for Matt Savoie. Well, now he probably climbs to the top of the list for Oilers prospects. Long-term, not necessarily this year, but long-term.
My radar went off at Wanye Manor, Gregor, and it had been inactive for quite some time since Reed Schaefer had been traded. Matthew Savoie, or Savoie, what am I saying here? Savoie?
Raphael, no, it's Matthew Savoie.
Savoie, okay.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I accidentally said Pickard for the goalie, on the Picard rather. Matthew Savoie's got 3 key buzzwords going, Gregor. From Edmonton, Moose Jaw Warrior, another check mark in my books. And third, comps Jordan Eberle. Has the new Jordan Eberle arrived via Moose Jaw? How excited do I get?
Yeah, see, Jordan Eberle, I think, is a much better comparison than people who are trying to put out Braden Point. If you're trying to compare him to Braden Point, first of all, Point's a center iceman. Point is infinitely more aggressive player. That's not a knock on Savoie. They're just different players. Like Eberle, smart, skilled player, not overly physical, but Eberle didn't shy away. Like, Eberle, you watch him in the playoffs. Like, I know everybody thinks of the 1 year in the play. Go back and look at his other playoff years. He's a competitive player. He's ultra competitive. He's just not a physical player, and that's fine. Remember when Eberle dropped the mitts? Had a pretty spirited scrap here this past year as a member of the Kraken. So he's competitive enough. He's just not Braden Point. Like Braden Point is fiery. He'd fight 3, 4, 5 times a year in junior, no problem, right? And that's just how he plays. So, more of a PK guy. I like the Eberle comparison, albeit that's still a tough comparison for anybody because when Jordan Eberle came into the NHL, he got an opportunity to play top 6 minutes right away on a bad team. Now, he had the skill to do it, don't get me wrong. But if you're Savoie, you come into Edmonton, well, at best, you're probably the third line right winger. At best, because you've got Arvidsson and you've got Hyman. And then you've got Nugent Hopkins and you've got Skinner. Oh, and what if Kane's healthy? Or what if Dylan Holloway's healthy? Like there's 6 wingers right there. Not to mention Connor Brown, who's a 2-time 20-goal scorer. And everybody saw in Edmonton a healthy Connor Brown compared to a guy who's recovering. There's a different player there. So, Savoie's going to come in. He's going to get every opportunity, I think, he should get, let me rephrase that. He should get every opportunity, top 6 minutes, first unit power play. To start, you don't get gifted that all year long, but you get the opportunity to start there because that's where I think if he's going to be an NHL player, he's going to be a top 6 forward. Could he adjust and maybe be a bottom 6? Possibly, but his skill set is top 6 forward. That's what he is.
Do you suggest I start putting the cart before the horse, Gregor, and start firing up my super fan machine? Should this be the next Jordan Eberle for us?
That would be, and if he becomes Jordan Eberle, the Oilers will do cartwheels.
Led by me.
Yeah.
I need a new Jordan Eberle. Ever since Reed Schaefer got dealt and I got the jersey with his training camp number put on the back after he got traded, there's been a hole in my heart, Gregor. I got to get somebody to get behind. Well,
that could be the guy. As long as people have realistic expectations.
No.
Because I think what happens, like I do find it comical when people are like, oh, the media runs people out of town. I'm like, not in the last 5 years. I said, first of all, no one runs anybody out of town. Number 2, though, if you look at lots more of the negativity, it comes from social media and fans because there's way more of them than there are members of the media, right? Think about it. How many, the millions of Oilers fans? They're not millions of members of the media. There just isn't. And so, people have to have real and just like, look at Connor Brown said it, how they treated him when he finally scored a goal. Like people, there was rage early on because he wasn't producing. Then it came to empathy, sympathy. And then it was excitement when he scored a goal. And then obviously jubilation with how he played in the playoffs when he was healthy. And you know what? I could understand the frustration of Brown, but he didn't lose his skill. He lost the ability to perform his skill because he wasn't healthy.
Would you like to see my Matthew Savoie Calder tattoo? 2025.
Yeah.
Number 1. Let's get those expectations high.
And that's another thing. Oilers fan, they still want a Calder. I can get it. Like Nugent Hopkins should have won the Calder. That's the one Edmonton Oilers player.
What about Connor?
I didn't play enough games. You can't win the Rookie of the Year when you only play 45 games. Can't do it. It's just over half season. Can't do it.
There's got to be a Calder Trophy winner at some point in our franchises. Illustrious history going forward.
But honestly, right now, the Oilers don't want a Calder winner because usually, like, when was the last Calder winner on a really successful competitive team?
That is a fair point.
So, usually it's like, hey, we got the Calder Trophy winner. Our team's not very good. Now, I think there's exceptions. But not many. Like I'm trying to think of, I have to go look. The last Calder winner, Matthews, because I think they made the playoffs in Toronto. He scored 40 goals. I think that would be it. Right? But there's not a lot of them that are on teams that, are a real contender. Like you can be a playoff team, but not really. Like Toronto wasn't a contender in I guess that's technically 17 because he got drafted in 16. So we'll see. By the way, speaking of getting excited, Do you get excited about like are you a soccer fan? Like did you watch the game on Friday?
I thought you were going to ask about Connor McDavid's wedding, and yes, I am getting excited for that.
Really?
Oh yeah, our royal wedding.
Yeah,
Surely,
but it's not in Edmonton.
1440 is going to simulcast the wedding, I assume.
Well, I'm pretty sure, knowing Connor, it'll be a private wedding.
I'm actually glad that they're not getting married here in Edmonton for their sake. Why Wayne and Janet ever got married in Edmonton, bless their hearts.
Totally different time, though. Back then, I felt there was a little bit more of a respect and understanding from people to give people their space. And there also wasn't not everybody had a phone with a camera who could track everything. Right. And there was people that were outside the basilica.
Tons of people.
When they got married, for sure. Right. But it was just a little bit different of a time. Nowadays, I think everybody, well, not everybody, but if you wanted to know, you would find out when the wedding is. Back then, unless you were really like looking for it, you probably weren't going to know exactly when and where it was. It's a different time. And but Connor, but also Wayne Gretzky. Part of what made him so great was understanding his importance of an icon in the sport.
Quickly, too.
Yes. Like he became an icon, and I don't use that word very often. He became that quickly, and it was deserved. He'd done things that the league had never seen, and he did it with class in how he treated people. You talk to his teammates, he would sign autographs and be waiting on the bus for an hour. That was just like, hey, we're going to win cups. But the part of it is we have the best player in the world, and he believes in growing the game, and he did. And I think it was also like kind of an opportunity to maybe say goodbye and thank you to the Edmonton fans. I think that Connor, I don't think is going anywhere right away.
I wonder that with the hindsight of 2020, if the Gretzkys knew they were on their way out of town and that was kind of the closing ceremonies. Because it sure was great at the time for Edmonton. I mean, I was too young, but I remember like Canada's royal wedding, front page of the newspaper nationally type
I remember talking to Don Metz about it because, of course, Metzy filmed the whole thing and everything. And, it was a big, like, yeah, you're right. Like, it was the royal wedding for Edmonton.
For Canada.
And, like, they'll never, I don't know about for Canada, definitely for Edmonton. I don't know if there'll ever be something similar to that now. Because you have to have two people that are willing to share their special day with people that they don't know. Like they're fans and they know they care about them, but they don't know them, right? So you'd have to have somebody who's willing and understanding to do it. Connor is very, very much a private person, which is totally his right. So I could understand why he wouldn't be getting married in Edmonton. I have no idea where he's getting married. I don't want to know where he's getting married. I'm like, I'm not invited. It's not my business. That's how I look at weddings. Like if I've never been offended to not give like I'll tell people like when you're young and you're 21 or I guess maybe now 25 plus 28, whatever the summer of weddings is, you get into that first summer, your friends are getting married, like, this is awesome. And then you get to like year 4 or 5 of the weddings. You're like, oh my God, another wedding I got to go to. Like there is a turning point where, and then there's like a gap. And then all of a sudden, because there's always a few people in your circle that they don't get married right away. And then you wait 10 years and now all of a sudden, oh, geez, I haven't been to a wedding in a while. This will be fun. So that's kind of, so some people are in that. I know my nephew's in that stage right now. He's 27, right? 28. And he's had a few buddies. They're like, it's got stags and it's great. And they should be great. But I could see there was like, because I remember one year I had 7 weddings. And by like wedding number 6 or 7, you're like, oh, God, like it's almost becoming too much now, right? Like my liver can't take it, my wallet can't take it. Like you're young, I didn't have that disposable income. You're buying everybody gifts. You're going to all these stags, like, eesh. So there does come a point where it's almost like too much.
I follow Lauren Kyle on Instagram, like all good Oilers fans. LK1, I call her. And I'll tell you, I've been on all 4 of her bachelorette parties remotely through her Instagram account to France. We are living good, Gregor. The wedding is going to be her dress. I can already see it in my mind's eye. It's a 10, an absolute 10.
Okay, we gotta change faces here. We'll come back. Andi Petrillo is going to join us. Canada, Argentina, a huge game tomorrow. Massive game. What if they win? We'll talk about it next on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Gather around the radio, kiddies, for the best time of day. It's Oodle Noodle time.
Canada. They take on Argentina. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Wanye Gretz with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook as we get to our football report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Home loan no payments, no interest for 1 year on your AC unit. And if you don't have one, you wish you had one right now. Well, call them today. Get it booked in because it is going to be hot, hot, hot all week at legacyheating.ca. As we welcome in from CBC Sports and One Soccer, Andi Petrillo joins us. And Andi, as you watch that game against Venezuela on Friday, and Canada absolutely dominated the first 30 minutes. They're up 1-0. They probably could have been up 3-0. They missed some glorious chances. And you're thinking, uh-oh. But you know what? They never really, they didn't give up a whole bunch. Like, obviously, the goal they allowed was, just a little bit of a miscue. Good play at the same time by Venezuela. But, Canada I thought they were really in control for the vast majority of that game. Like, is that the best game you've seen the men's program play from start to finish?
Yeah, it's right up there. I mean, obviously with some, again, I think if we're going to nitpick, and of course it's nitpicking right now because this is really exceptional what they're doing, is you want to see them finish those chances that they've created. But I think what you've just said there is kind of what really sums up this tournament. They've never looked out of place. They look like they belong, and they've actually controlled games. Now, yes, their final 2 group stage games, they had the man advantage in the sense that, Chile, Peru both took yellow cards and they were down to 10 men. But even in that first game against Argentina didn't score in the first half. Substitutions were made by Argentina, adjustments were made by Argentina. They come on out and they score those 2 goals in the second half. Canada never really looked out of place. And yeah, they dominated a lot of play in the final group stage games and then came out with a ton of confidence against Venezuela and also a lot of composure. Like we talk a lot about getting CONCACAF and the region of CONCACAF kind of playing shenanigans and being nasty. Cannonball, you can times that by 100. Their nastiness and their, master of the dark arts is like on steroids there. The Canadians aren't falling apart. I mean, we even saw in that game against Peru, Alistair Johnson getting headbutted. Like, they're not falling for that stuff. They're maintaining their composure as well. We saw the Americans in their game. Timothy Weah got so frustrated in his game, slapped a guy. The Americans go down to 10 men. We know that their tournament has been an absolute disaster. They didn't make it out of the group. And now here you have Canada. Out of the 6 CONCACAF nations that were invited to this tournament, who would have put their hand up to say Canada would be the last one remaining? But that's what they've done. They haven't looked out of place. They've controlled play for many parts of their games, and they've maintained composure. There is such a maturity with this team.
Yeah, well, it's that finishing ability is a skill. It's like scoring in hockey. It's the hardest skill to do at the end of the day. And like Jonathan David is one of those guys who's a pretty good scorer. Laren has been really good for them in other games. He just missed that one tap and was a little bit far ahead of him, but he probably would have liked it. So if you look at him game planning against Argentina and Canada, I thought their speed and how they attacked, Venezuela just didn't have an answer. Where does Argentina, is Canada going to be able to generate as much? Do they have the speed to attack this Argentina team? How do you expect them to break them down?
I mean, I think they do, but the other thing is as much as Canada has probably watched some tape and made some adjustments from game 1, so has Argentina. But I think that's, what Jesse Marsh is trying to preach with this team is just stick with the process. Like the first game that they played against the Netherlands, the friendly, even heading into Copa, as we all know, they looked good in that first half. Things fell apart. It's a very fatiguing, tiring way to play. And then as we know, that game ended up 4-0 with all those 4 goals being scored in the second half. But then it's really improved. And this team has the legs and this team has the stamina, and he's chosen the right people. I mean, even now he's doing still a little bit of experimenting with Schaffelberg being a starter now and not just coming off the bench. The guy has legs for days. He can just keep running. And then because of that, you end up preserving the energy of other guys. Like Alphonso Davies doesn't have to run as much as he did before, because when you've kind of figured out who you've got up front, and right now he seems to like Stephen Eustachio and Jonathan Osorio in that middle, and then he has David and Laren, and he has Schaffelberg up there, he's liking it. And then with his wing backs running as well, now he's been experimenting again with Richie Larea, who's typically a defender up there. So he's actually in some ways, even though they're always like just guns a-blazing the entire time in the game, they're still being preserved in other ways because guys are just filling in spots and just like kind of filling each other's, if you leave this space, they're in this space. So it actually, kind of in some ways conserves that energy. But I think if they can remain compact, play that long ball, which is something that they have been doing in many ways. That's the Jesse Marsh system, right? It's not about that tiki-taka passing possession. Yep. It's about the high press. It's to force the opposition to turn the ball over, get it, boom, send your forwards running. Of course, that becomes tricky with guys, like Messi, and they have a plethora of others, but we'll see, because they didn't look that bad against Argentina game 1, and they've just been gaining confidence as the competition's been going on.
Yeah, they didn't look that bad. Now, they did say that they're not, because he was asked today, and he basically outlined, hey, we're not going to play, we're not going to shadow Messi. Do you agree with that decision?
That's not his style. It's kind of like, your zone defending versus your man-to-man defending. Yeah. And when you do kind of more of what they do, which is, again, the high press and also just kind of converge on a player to force a turnover, it's not very man-to-man. In some ways, my first reaction is, that's smart. What? Like, you want to try to go head-to-head with Messi? He's going to dribble around you. Like, you just don't want your guys getting nutmegged or embarrassed in some way. It has to be by committee. Because he can just burn you. He's shown it. There's highlight reels. Just go look on YouTube. So why would you do that? Why would you set one guy up to do that when you can have a team, when it can be, a tag team, double team, triple, and then other guys fill in that space. So obviously you don't want to leave a huge gap because Messi's very smart. He can also pass off. Remember those 2 goals in that first game? He assisted on them. So he has incredible vision on the pitch as well. So it's going to really take the Canadians having their heads on a swivel. But Messi, we also don't, I don't want to downplay it in any way, shape, or form. We don't know what kind of health he's in. He did have a knock that kept him out of the final group stage game. Argentina did not look good against Ecuador. No. That went to penalties. Messi missed his penalty. So, I don't know if I'm going to throw any jube that way, if that's even a thing that, you could do. But we're, at the end of the day, listen, they're the Copa America champions or the World Cup champions, but I do believe Canada's confidence, though, has been going up and up and up since the start of this tournament.
Andi Petrillo joins us. Andi, Kone came in late in that game, and, I just like how he plays. What did you make of the decision to have him taken out of the starting role? And the way he played, albeit in limited minutes, then he scored the crucial goal. Does he start for you tomorrow?
I like him as a starter. And I think we had this conversation when we were on a couple weeks ago because he looks so good against Netherlands and France. And then Copa America started and we went, what happened? And I said to you, the rumors were out there about him joining Marseille. It is confirmed. He has joined the club. So I don't know how much of that, again, is this a distraction. Here he is playing, but he knows that a massive deal has just been made for him to join the top league in France, getting out of, England, where he's gone from, championship team, not Premier League. This is a huge leap for him and for his career. I don't know what's going on in his head. A, it's a distraction, so you're thinking about it. B, is the player, and this is just me speculating, obviously he can only answer this, does he suddenly think, ooh, new club, let me show them what I'm worth, and then you end up trying too hard? Because to me, the drop off the cliff was just too drastic for me to go, he's become poor, he's got bad form. No, it means there's something going on between the ears for me. That's what that told me. So, you throw in Jonathan Osorio, who's a veteran and has looked fantastic, but you're right. When Kone comes in and he's dialed in, you go, oh, yeah, okay, that's who we want. That's the guy who was the starter, ever since Atiba Hutchinson has retired. It's been him and Stefan Eustáquio in that midfield. There we go. That's the guy we want back again. So I'm hoping all that distraction is now behind him. He looked good in that knockout game. To your point, this guy doesn't take penalty kicks. He walks on in, scores it, doesn't even react. It's a regular Sunday afternoon for him. This is just what I do. I just score crucial PKs when, everything's on the line. So I love his attitude. I love his demeanor. I love everything. So I hope he's got the distractions away. I hope he's got it back between the ears.
How'd you find Alphonso Davies play against Venezuela?
I thought he was exceptional. And this is where a lot of people say, hey, I'm watching the game and I don't really hear Alphonso Davies' name being called. Was he not playing well? I said, quite the opposite. So Jesse Marsh has made the decision he's a left back and he is playing a true left back role. That isn't to say if he doesn't see an opportunity to push forward, he doesn't. But when you've got a guy like Jacob Schaffelberg on your side, right, who's running that wing, he's taking up a lot of that energy for you. And that allows you to focus on being back, right? Like, who knows? Will he be, who knows if he'll be the one who'll have to go up against Messi quite a bit. But like, that to me speaks volumes. So he's playing his role. He's staying in his lane in a good way. And he's showing that he's a leader. He's showing that he's true captain material because, I actually brought this up on the broadcast as well when they showed the picture of Sidney Crosby and how he went and he was there and then, took pictures with everybody in the dressing room. And I said, well, if I'm going to give you another hockey example here, I mean, that was the same thing with Steve Yzerman out in Detroit. He was asked to sacrifice his offense, to sacrifice his numbers, play a little bit more of a defense-oriented game for the betterment of the team. And as we know, Detroit went on and won the Stanley Cup. And I said, to me, that this is, I'm drawing that correlation with Alphonso Davies because as much as he would love to run up there, as much as he would love to score and get that glory, he needs to stay back and he needs to play defensively. So he's making that sacrifice. Now, it probably won't happen every game, but he's making that sacrifice because the rest of the team thrives. So even though you're not hearing his name, he's actually playing a very strong game, and he's, to me, showing leadership qualities there.
Andy, there were a few instances in that game against Venezuela where I thought he set up the give, right? And then he went to go, and he didn't get the ball back. And I'm kind of with his speed, I'm like, they got to make that play. Like, did you see the same thing?
Yeah, there were moments like that. And that's where we can then talk about just like the offense again and the finishing touches because they do create things. And then for some reason, when they get in that final third, it's like decision-making goes out the window. And I don't know why, right? Like, I don't know what's happening because, to your point, you do have a guy like Davies who can make those runs and is a proven goal scorer. Jonathan David, 1000% is a proven goal scorer. Kyle Larin is the all-time leading goal scorer for the Canadian men's national team. And he's gotten it done as well in La Liga, even though he's kind of struggling at the moment. But these are all guys who we know can score against top opponents. And you're sitting there going, what is going on? And I know Jesse Marsh is hearing the chatter because in a lot of his post-game press conferences, he's saying that's by design. In some ways, he's like, I'm really telling my guys to focus on the defensive thing. So a lot of the people defending Kyle Larin are like, okay, he's not scoring, but his hold-up play is amazing. Or, Jonathan David wasn't in the box at that time because, the hold-up. And I'm like, that's great, but at what point does Jesse Marsh have to unleash the beasts? Sometimes I get it. You want to work on that defense, and you don't kind of want to mess with what seems to be progressing and looking good. But you're in the knockout stages now, baby. You're in the semifinals. Like, you want to go to PKs again? Okay, I'm not saying that isn't the possibility in your ticket to a final, but you've got to start scoring goals, or you're just putting way too much stress, anxiety on yourself here to win games. Score.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now the Canadian Championship is coming up.
Yes, so this is really exciting. The leg one of the semifinal of the Canadian Championship resumes, and we have ourselves some classic derbies here, right? So Pacific, a CPL team, going up Vancouver Whitecaps, the MLS side, so they're out west, and then you have Forge FC, another CPL team from Hamilton, going up against Toronto FC. So there's some nice little derbies happening there. And as we know, Toronto FC is struggling right now. 6-game losing skid, leaking goals, not really scoring them. Forge is feeling very confident. Their last 2 games have been a wee bit wild. There's been a 4-3 loss, and then they scored in the last minute for a 3-3 draw. So they've been in some high-scoring games too. But in this championship, they've beaten CF Montreal. So they know that they can beat an MLS team. They are feeling very confident about that. TFC hasn't even really been challenged in this tournament. They played the Simcoe County Rovers, CS St. Laurent. These were both semi-professional sides. So now they're going to, let's see what they can do against a CPL side. Pacific will be in a lot more tough. Vancouver's looking for the three-peat. They're the reigning champs. They're looking good in MLS. They're a team now that, struggled before on the road. Now they're picking up wins on the road. They're looking good, more well-rounded. Pacific has to be perfect on the night, absolutely perfect. And they seem to have dipped a little bit in form because they didn't concede a goal in the league until the 7th game. So defensively, they were an absolute wall. And then after that, 1-0 loss, they just kind of have been like up and down with their results. But in order to beat Vancouver, they have to be absolutely perfect on the night. But I like this. I like that we have they're within their divisions, right? We have both of them are CPL versus MLS. And both of, the one matchup is out in the West and the one matchup is out in the East. So I think these are going to be some good classic matchups.
Andy, it's going to be fun. I think the excitement is building for Canada tomorrow night to, it'll be one of the most watched games, I think, for the men's program ever, which is great. Obviously, the women had the Olympic gold, so that puts it up there for sure. But the fact that it's messy and it's Argentina and, Canada's still a significant underdog and, anywhere you go for betting lines and stuff. They came in, they were ranked 48th in the world. So that's my last question. How high would they jump after a performance like this? Any idea?
You're asking, I don't even think Stephen Hawking can figure out FIFA's point system, because they take this and then they multiply that and then they subtract this depending on who, because they look at quality of opponent as well. So a win isn't just a win that gets you, let's just say 100 points. A win against a certain opponent gets you X amount of points versus whatever points. So that's one big secret that they do in a big room. But what we did see was, to your point, we did see them make that leap, into, I think at one point they were ranked 40th based on what they did in World Cup qualifying. So I think this is they definitely will jump a few spots, whether that goes to high 30s or stays at 40. Either way, it's going to be a real positive ranking for them. And you're right. They're going to be the underdogs. I feel like this whole tournament as well has been all about honoring Messi. I really hope, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that the officiating is much better than what it has been. We all know in that first game, even just letting Argentina come out late, letting certain things go, even against Venezuela, the ref just missed a lot of things. It was just kind of ridiculous. So I get it. Messi's awesome, but this is still a semifinal game that matters. I just hope everything is called properly. And once again, Canada has proven they can block out the noise, because you might see one Canadian flag in the stand, but that's okay. They're used to playing in hostile territory.
Oh, it sounds like there might be more, but yeah, it'll be. There were some tickets online if you wanted to pony up for them, for sure. So
how much are they going for?
The final game, the tickets are already for $2,800 American for one seat. And then
who are these people?
That's not even in the lower bowl. So it's in the second one. So you know what?
I need rich friends. That's what I need. I need to make some rich friends who can buy these tickets for me.
They say there's 50,000, give or take 50,000 millionaires in Canada. So
Alberta,
sorry, in Alberta.
Just in Alberta?
Just in Alberta, yeah.
Might have to move out there and just
Ontario,
bump into some random people.
Ontario probably has a few more, but yeah, in Alberta, that's what according to the tax census. So somebody out there's got the money.
Somebody's got it.
Well, somebody. Hey, you get to the Copa America's final, and there's people from all over the world. Even usually it's Argentina and whichever Canada, who's ever there, Colombia, who's ever in. But I'm assuming there'll be fans who are just fans of soccer who still want to go to watch it, because if Canada makes it, no question that'll be an absolute gong show, and it's on a Sunday night too. It'll be a lot of fun.
Well, for sure. And the thing is, there's a reason why they're hosting, they're having America host it, right? CONMEBOL's not stupid. They know that they have the better stadiums, but they also have people who are willing to spend those types of money on tickets. You try to have that in South America, they're going to be what do you want us to spend on a ticket? Take a hike, right? But they know that they can get away with that type of pricing on American soil. So there was definitely a method to their madness here. Think about it. Copa America is South America's cup, right? Why is a South American tournament being played on American soil? Well, it's, you got American broadcasting, because you've also invited the American teams, you have American stadiums, you have American pricing, and there's a huge Latino community, as we know, in the States. So it's still going to get a ton of that. But it's the money. They knew they could make more in America. That is why they are hosting there. Don't even for 1 second think otherwise.
Now, and the fact that Canada has this good of a showing, now I know it's only one, but the long-term effects of this tournament should make it easier for Canada to get the quality friendlies that they want, correct?
Should, yeah, 100%. And it's also worth noting, just by being a Final Four team, so the minimum amount of money they're going to go home with. So if they were to lose to Argentina, they're going home. Canada Soccer, the federation, is going home with $8 million. So I think the winner gets like 13 million or something like that, because it's 2 million just for being there, 2 million to get out of your group.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the knockout and you make it to the Final Four, I think it's another like 4 million.
Yeah, that Canada is guaranteed 8 million already. If they win, it's 9 guaranteed.
Yeah.
Then they can move up to get even up towards of 7 million if you make it to the so then they're up to over 10. So yeah, it'd be massive for the program.
Yeah. So it's huge for the federation in that sense, like making that kind of money. And then you're right, because the other reason why I don't want to bore people with some of this nitty gritty, although some people probably do find, the money part of it really interesting. The reason why they played Netherlands and France in Europe was because they definitely can't afford to pay those teams and bring them here. So Netherlands and France assumed those costs. They brought them there. Canada actually made money, as a federation, made money by going there because Netherlands and France are so rich that they were like, sure, no problem. So they foot the bill for everything. And that's why, but unfortunately for a lot of, Canadian soccer fans, you're like, we want to watch our team. We want you to be playing out in Vancouver or out in Edmonton or out in Montreal or out in Toronto, but they can't afford that right now because they can't afford to bring those kinds of big countries to play the men. So the more the players can do well, right? The more that they can go further in tournaments and bring money into the federation. This is where you keep your fingers crossed that you've now hired the right people in the federation. This is what the players have been fighting for, right people to spend the money the right way and to have transparency. If you do that, well, then, yeah, you can afford not just to play against those top countries, Jason, but to play them at home, to play them on home soil. So your own fans can go and buy tickets and watch them. And, the Canadian men aren't always playing somewhere in Europe. So wouldn't that be nice, right? But it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? You need the team to do well to bring money in, but you need the federation to be smart on how they spend money. And it's like, whoa, round and round we go, right? But either way, all that is to say, what the men are doing is exceptional on so many fronts right now.
Andi, enjoy the games. We'll talk about it next week.
Thanks, guys.
That's Andi Petrillo from CBC and One Soccer. Quick break. We'll come back. We got 5 questions more on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Get in the game.
Be melon jolly, not melancholy. Summer is ripe for fun and some booster juice.
YouTube, and Facebook. Hope you're having a great day. Stay cool out there. Stay cool. Let's get to 5 questions brought to you by The Brick. And this is the day where you'll need one of those chest freezers starting at only $199. Amazing deals on all the fridges so you can keep your game day snacks or just a day like today. Everything's cool. Because you know what? I don't care if you drink Perrier, if you have beer, if you have a cooler, whatever it is. When it's this hot out, that cold taste, delish. Get it. Keep it cool at The Brick, thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right. Question number 1. Raph Lavoie has signed his 1-year, 2-way contract with the Oilers. What are your expectations from him next season?
I guess a heck of a season in Bakersfield.
Yeah, Lavoie's an interesting player because you look and say, hey, could this guy possibly be your 4th line right winger? He did kill penalties a bit, but not a ton. And so I really think like Raphael Lavoie, I know, and we had Colin Schock on, he used him because the truth is for most guys, like if you're in the bottom 6 and you're not on the power play and you're not on the penalty kill, then you're kind of out of the rotation. It's hard. So I'm going to say for Lavoie, if he could get in, he's got to be ready when an injury occurs to take advantage of it. That's how I'll view it.
Question number 2. Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins are reportedly nearing a contract extension. What would an ideal extension be for Sidney and the Pens? Or has he reached the point in his career with the Penguins where he gets it blank check style, names his price?
Wow. I don't think he'd name his price, but where did he finish? He finished like 94, 95 points, I think it was. Like he had a really good year. So I'm guessing, I'm curious on the term for Sid. I'm going to guess it's 3 years. And it's funny enough, they don't have a lot of cap space, but I think it's because it's Sidney Crosby and he signed that long-term deal. I'm going to say he gets double digits. I'm going to say he gets 3 years at 10 mil.
Wow. I think given his ability, they took the hometown discount, like you said, with the $8.7 million deal.
But it turned out to be hometown. He just didn't know it at the time, right?
So when he signed it, it was considered not a discount?
Well, it was 8.7 mil. It was like one of the highest paid contracts in the league.
I see.
Yeah.
He strikes me as a team first guy. So if he double digits is insane, if he feels that he has it in him, but he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy to try to wring every last cent out of the Penguins.
Question number 3. The Elks' next 7 games before the big one, Calgary on Labor Day weekend, include the Ticats twice, who are 0-5, and the Red Blacks, who are 2-2, but a little underwhelming. How many games do they win in their next 7?
Well, I wasn't fully up to speed on the Elks on account of the Oilers going to the Cup final, so I had to go look, Declan, at the old CFL stats. 0-4. I thought we had a whole new leaf we were turning over, Gregor. What happened to the Elks? What's happening right now?
Kind of the same, but when I look at the Elks, I will say their next 7: Red Blacks, Ticats, Calgary. Well, they got to start winning some games. So they've lost a lot of. I'll say they're 3-4. They find a way to win some games, but they still find a way to lose a few.
Question number 4. This doesn't necessarily come from anything specific or recent, but what was the most impressed you've ever been by a moment in sports, whether it be a play, a result, a team effort? What was the moment that made your head swing back and you went, wow?
06 Cup run. I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned that on Sports 1440, but that was a heck of a time.
Who played?
The Oilers. I can't remember how it ended, but I'm fairly certain that they won the Cup that year. I'll just go with the 06 Cup run, soup to nuts.
Yeah, that's a good one. If I'm thinking of a moment,
the golden goal is another one. Sidney Crosby scoring in 2010. That was a moment, non-Oilers related, that blew my mind.
Big goal for sure. I'm trying to think of just like a play that you're just like, and there's been a lot of good ones, of course. Like I go back in time. You mentioned like when Jordan, the one time when he's on air and all of a sudden he switches hands going to the basket. I hadn't really seen that. You're like, all right, that's pretty good.
Pronger game 1 of 06 when he got the penalty shot.
Yeah. Kevin Mitchell's barehanded catch backwards as an outfielder when he's running over his shoulder and he couldn't get his glove hand over his shoulder, so he runs and gets his other hand. Like, that's one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. So that would you know what, that Kevin Mitchell catch still might be it's the one that really stands out. Like, there's lots of goals. McDavid's had some pretty great goals. I don't know if there's one that's more wow. Like, you've been wowed many times by him. But honestly, if I go back in the archives of my sporting memory, the Kevin Mitchell catch is still one where I was just like, oh my God, that was unreal down the line. So I'll go with that one.
And finally, question number 5. On this day in sports history, there were numerous Wimbledon-related events, wins, etc. So as such, Wimbledon's going on right now. I ask, who is on your Mount Rushmore of tennis greats, both genders included, or, if you'd like, who is the GOAT?
Well, if I'm going Mount Rushmore, so there's 4. Well, Serena's on there for sure. Federer. I'd probably go, and maybe this is recency bias, but I'm going Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and Serena.
I think Federer would have to be the top for me too, but that's not very controversial. I almost went Michael Chang, but you don't see him on Mount
He was
Rushmore.
good, man. He was a really good tennis player.
Darn right.
Yeah,
Dude, that guy, he was
Wimbledon champ.
He was
17.
relentless. Like, he was so fast, and his recovery speed on the court was amazing to watch.
I remember as a kid who wasn't interested in tennis in the least, taking note of Michael Chang and being like, that's the guy.
Like, he never gave up. Like, he never gave up on a point. It was, and he just had an engine that just seemed like he was like the Duracell bunny.
Did he have a good career?
That's the Energizer bunny. My bad. Yeah, he had a pretty good career. He won 3 majors, 2?
I think it was 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Oh, you know what? It was 1 and 2 finals.
2 finals.
But the one he won, he was 17, which was
that's his
all the more
only
impressive.
major final.
Yeah, 89. And then he made a final 7 years later at the Aussie Open in 96, and he made the US Open final that same year. Yeah.
Wow.
But the kids today don't know about Michael Chang. He was a hell of a tennis player.
Put him on the mountain. Put him up high.
He's like your Ryan Smith. And, just the guy who just, worked hard all the time.
Then Matthew Savoie.
Pretty good skill. Matthew Savoie will...
hardworking kid.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, very skilled. I don't care what league you play in. When you're 2 points a game, you're a skill player. And the biggest, I think, advantage Savoie... Now, because you look at it 2 ways. Originally, he's probably like, if you're in Buffalo, it's like, oh, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. In Edmonton, there's not going to be much opportunity necessarily right away, but if I look at Matt Savoie, and if you want to make a fun kind of outside the box comparison, you say Matt Savoie. Now, the Oilers didn't win the cup, but they went to as close as you can to winning it. They're a really good team. Then the next year, just around Christmas time, after starting in the minors, Jake Gensel got called up to Pittsburgh, who had won the cup in 16. Then he joined the team from the minors. Now, he's a few years older, sure, but not crazy old, and slotted in as a scoring player. I'm just saying there's a lot. Now, Gensel lit it up in the American League. So there are situations where young guys, you know what? The best thing for him is to go to the minors. And he's going to have to light it up in the minors for sure to get a recall. And if he doesn't, that's okay. It might be he has a full year in the American League, which there's nothing wrong with. What is it? Close to 88% of NHLers play in the American League. It's not a big deal. So I'm curious about him, but his advantage is when he comes up, he could play with 2 of the best centers in the league. Now, he also has to play against tougher players, but he's smart enough to play with skilled guys. So temper your expectations. I always say that, but I just look at different ones to say, where could it go for him? I think a lot of it's on the Oilers' development and Savoie's determination and commitment, bigger, stronger, faster. Like, this guy should be excited to say, hey, Draisaitl and McDavid, I don't firmly believe they're not going anywhere. I think they're both going to re-sign here. And if you're an offensive-minded player and you're like, oh, my goodness, like, just keep working. Because once I get up there, I'm going to get a few free goals. That's just a fact. So could be a big game changer. Plus, it'd be fun, I would think, to play with those two. Just a thought. Let's get to Declan Kruger and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Albatross Roofing. They're looking for experienced flat roofers and sheet metal fabricators. Must have experience with the SBS modified bitumen roofing systems. You can apply at roofingalbatross.ca.
This is the Sports 1440 update.
And for your Sports 1440 update, we start with the Edmonton Oilers, who have re-signed forward Raph Lavoie to a one-year, two-way contract with an AAV of $775,000 at the NHL level. Edmonton Elks making moves as they have signed American Sean Oakman, Derek Moncrief, and Noah Taylor, along with national Zach Matisse at the wide receiver position and global linebacker Les Morrow. Sean Oakman, the marquee signing, joins the Green and Gold after being released by the Argos on June 11th. Oakman spent 3 seasons with the Argos, where he won the 109th Grey Cup in 2022 and was named a 2-time East Division All-Star and a CFL All-Star in his rookie season. Scores around the MLB earlier today. It was the Cardinals over the Nationals 6-0 and the Pirates over the Mets 8-2. One game in action right now between the Guardians and Tigers is tied 0-0 in the bottom of the second. Rockies and Reds, Twins and White Sox, Rangers and Angels, and Braves and Diamondbacks all on the schedule later today. Results from Wimbledon in the men's round of 16 saw Taylor Fritz beat 4th seed Sasha Zverev in 5 sets. Alex de Minaur and Lucas Massetti winning both their matchups in 4 sets. And it was number 2 seed Novak Djokovic over 15 seed Holger Rune in straight sets. In the women's side, it was Alina Svitolina, Yelena Ostapenko, and Barbara Krejcikova all winning in straight sets, while 4th seed Alina Rybakina won by way of walkover. NHL news as the Washington Capitals have named Chris Patrick as their general manager, with longtime GM Brian McClellan remaining president of hockey operations with the club. The NFL has suspended cornerback Cameron Sutton of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 8 games without pay for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy, the league announced earlier today. And finally, Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins are closing in on a contract extension, according to Rob Rossi of The Athletic. According to Rossi, citing multiple sources, he writes, the team and player are confident a deal will be agreed upon and formalized soon. Up next is Hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show. We'll be joined by Rogers Sportsnet's Mark Spector and In Goal Magazine's Kevin Woodley. I'm Declan Kruger. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440 in
going on right now. So I know hockey fans are like, "Phew, you're decompressing," but think about it. The Oilers are making trades. They're still talking. They got the GM search going on right now. You've got the Stingers playing great. You've got the Riverhawks playing well. You've got Canada, Argentina tomorrow night. Semifinals of Copa America is a chance to go to the final on Sunday. Oh, hey, the Jays big series win in Seattle. George Springer has woken up for them. Vladdy Guerrero, they finally got some guys hitting the ball. Their bullpen with some strong performances over the weekend. Now, they're way out of it. I get it, but at least some good things going on. So, and you're super hot right now. Wherever you're at, you probably got the AC cranked in your vehicle. If not, you got your arm hanging out the vehicle, just like, whoo, can't get away. Like, this is the days where even if you have one of those small kiddie pools, right, you put that in the backyard and you just sit in it. You're just like, put the hose in there. I don't care how cold it is. It's refreshing. And after 20 minutes, the water warms up anyway. So I remember that as a kid. Like, we didn't have a pool. We had like those small little plastic pools, man. We thought it was the greatest thing ever. Oh, I loved it.
I did a bracing cold shower this morning to wake up. Got up fairly hot. Sun's up early. You ever do that?
Well, they say it's very good for you.
Well, I don't know about that. Didn't feel great, but it definitely cooled off.
Oh, it cools you off, but wakes you up. They say it's good to have a cold shower.
Do you ever do ice baths?
No. I don't think I could do it. I'm kind of like, no.
All your trainers and stuff, no one's lowered you into
like I get that. I've read up on it so much. I'm like, I'm not a professional athlete. Like, I'm just trying to get by, doing my Peloton every second day and, do some new squat mover. That's good enough for me. I don't need to, I'm not setting any records anymore. I had that time in my life.
Sauna?
When I was, I have an infrared sauna in my house.
Do you use it?
Not as often as I should, but I do use it. Use it more in the wintertime. It's hard in the summertime. I'm like, I'm Honda. What the hell do I want to go in the sauna for? Plus, I always fall asleep in it, which is good because it has a timer. I can just turn on the timer and then it's just like, fall asleep. It's very relaxing.
You got to have the timer going though.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't want to stay in there too long, but I'll just have the timer off. Then I'll stay sleeping, but the timer's off. So there we go. It's a Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Tomorrow, Lotto Max, boys and girls. Get your tickets, $50 million. Oof. Like a 1-year LeBron James contract. PlayAlberta.ca. So get to the spec. We got Kevin Woodley coming up. The Oilers have some goaltending coaching changes. We'll get to that. But first, Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. And they're hot out there. They remind you, drive safe through the construction zones, please. They want to get home just as soon as you do. It's GS Construction. As Mark Spector joins us. And Spec, the Oilers made that Savoie trade on Friday, and you had a chance to look it over and everything. I wrote kind of the layers of this trade because, you know what, if you just look at it, people are like, wow, they got, Edmonton definitely has much less risk in this trade for sure because they needed to shed the salary anyway of Ryan McLeod. I guess there's a slight risk. Ryan McLeod's a good player. All right, like he's a bona fide NHL player. I think he'll have a 10-year career. I'll be stunned if he doesn't because he skates so well. But when you listen to Matt Savoie here, like when you crunch numbers, talk to people over the weekend, what's your expectations of Savoie down the road?
Well, who can say? I'm not a projection guy in terms of, every year we have the draft and they go, this guy's like a young Leon Draisaitl and this guy reminds me of Ronnie Francis. And I always find that to be, frankly, complete BS. Here's what I project for Matt Savoie. He's mastered it at the junior level, right? He's done it, man. He's a small player, but that doesn't matter because his points, he's good enough to be as small as he is. His points he's 2 points a game. Played for 4 or 5 different uniforms he put on this year, and he produced for every single team. That's a huge, great sign, right? Good sign. Now, the next step. They said, there's lots of guys who get to the American League and then they stop making steps. I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying that's going to describe Matt Savoie, but he's making one step at a time. I'm not thinking he's going to get 2 points a game in Bakersfield, but he's got to produce there, and he's got to show everybody that he's good enough to master that level. And then let's project him at the NHL. I'm not going to project this guy in the National League yet. He hasn't even played in the American League, for Pete's sakes. More than 6 games.
Yeah. No, I think, hey, you're a 2-point-a-game player in junior, though. There's lots of projections historically will tell you got a pretty good chance to be a productive player.
Yep, it does.
At the next level.
Stop everything for a second. Wanye.
Go on.
What's the only Finnish word in the English language?
Puliarvi?
Sauna. You just said it 10 times. Sauna.
I like it. I didn't know that actually. So good one. Sauna. We call it sauna, but should we call it a sauna? Okay, I like that. The GM search spec. That's kind of the next step here for the Oilers this summer and Jeff Jackson. And you get a sense that it'll be done by the end of the month or sooner.
No, I think by the end of the month, I think a GM needs to have some time before the season to figure out, and this could be a different type of GM. Like, I'm not sure we'll see the traditional thing. I see Jim Matheson saying, why aren't we just using Keith Gretzky to run the system and run the team and let the super agent on top run the big Draisaitl and McDavid contracts and they collaborate at the trade deadline. I'm not sure that's a bad idea. I'm not sure they need to bring in who is there? They brought in Pete Chiarelli, a legitimate big time GM. Then they brought in Ken Holland, a legitimate big time GM. Do you think they bring in another legitimate, experienced big time GM, Jason?
I don't think so. But I can't say for certain. I don't get the sense it's going to be Keith Gretzky from conversations I've had. So we'll kind of see from there. But I think you could make you can make a strong argument. Bill Scott, Keith Gretzky, Brad Holland as a team have done very well, and it's a matter of I will say their GM. I think they're really big that their GM resides here. Not necessarily year round, but it's got to live here during the season, right? I think that's a key.
Absolutely.
And so, that's something that now you would think that would be an easy requirement for some people, but it's not always for some. So, that'll be a factor for sure. There's like Jeff Jackson, I've been trying to look because connections matter in sports all the time, Spec. I think we've all seen that. And, I'm kind of looking through, who because he's worked with so many different players and has worked with so many different guys that he's got his tentacle tree, if I want to call it that, extends in a lot of different directions.
Sure does. Oh, the guy's been around a long time. He goes back to being and he did play in the league. He was not a memorable player, but he played in the league and he played games. And then he's been in, he was in the Leaf system and he's been in management. And then he went and made probably his largest gains as an agent, and then he became a super agent, and he's done all the stuff. And I think the proof's in the pudding. The guy just had his first July 1st running an NHL team, and he had the best July 1st we've seen in this town in decades. So he's got chops, right? He's got chops. So I sort of feel after that deadline, I'll be honest with you, Jason, I'm not here to second guess Jeff Jackson. I'll say it now. Whatever he does, it's probably the right move. It's kind of like when Knobloch was switching his players around in the playoffs, and every time he did it, the guy went in and scored a goal. So I'm not sure what he'll do either. I'm not sure what he requires, right? Like, for instance, some GMs don't travel that much with their teams. Ken Holland traveled to other than being at GM meetings, he went to every single road game with his hockey team. He was all with his team. Some GMs aren't that way.
No.
What is Jeff Jackson as president or CEO? Does he want to travel that much? Maybe
no,
he doesn't.
I can tell you 100% he won't be.
Yeah. So maybe he wants a guy that does. Maybe that's the requirement in Edmonton is to travel on games, Jay.
Yes. Oh, I know it is for sure.
If Paul Coffey didn't want to coach the D, but he did begrudgingly and did an amazing job, why can't they use the same guilt trip on Jeff Jackson? Just say, you don't want to be GM, but you have to be because Paul Coffey is the assistant coach. What would happen then, Gregor? What could he possibly do?
I don't mind that. I don't mind that one bit.
Yeah, it's funny. Coffey, the one thing I appreciate about Paul is he's very honest. He told me flat out he doesn't think he has enough experience to be a GM. That was his words, not mine. So take that for what it's worth. GM job maybe even harder than being an assistant coach.
Does Jeff Jackson live in Edmonton?
He kind of splits between Edmonton because his family's back.
Toronto?
Yeah, my understanding is his wife's she's got her own occupation and a really own career, so they kind of split. So that's where we're at there. Spec, Canada, Venezuela, the game on a Friday. And, I know you talked about it before. And hey, I'm kind of excited to watch this game. But the game lived up to the hype, man. Like that first 30 minutes, I couldn't, I'm watching it with, my son's all fired up about it, especially because Canada scores and then they're getting all these chances. You're like, is this like a hockey game? There's all these great chances there and they're not scoring. But, then it ends up going to penalty kicks. But, a huge win for them. And I really think it's grabbed, and maybe just because all the excitement in Edmonton, it just seems like everybody that I've talked to is like, I can't wait for the Canada game now. Like they're kind of used to destination viewing a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a soft point in the schedule. Hockey's done. Baseball doesn't matter yet. There's no football. And all of a sudden we got this really cool hockey team, our soccer team that's playing on TV. So yes, I'm pumped. My Tuesday night is mapped out, man. I'm watching that game. So are a ton of our listeners right now. And I kind of have a little bit of a theory, like when what's Canada ranked, something like 46 or 47?
48. Yeah, 48.
So they're 48. Like, don't take this the wrong way, but they're kind of middle of the pack. They're not obviously a titan of the sport yet. We will be one day. And when they play another mid-40s team like Venezuela, you get a great game because there's tons of chances. Like neither team was that sound defensively. So the result was we had all kinds of scoring chances at both ends of the pitch. I thought it was one of the most exciting football matches I've seen at a high level. It seems to me when and this is the same for, what was the score in the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final? It was 2-1. It wasn't 6-5. When two really, really good teams hunker down and play their best hockey, play their best baseball, play their best soccer, what do they say? Defense wins championships. So sometimes, when you're watching two great teams in the Euro, they're very tidy and they're very smart. Sometimes when you're watching Canada play Venezuela, man, there's chances all over the place. It's way more fun to watch. So I can't wait to see how they handle it against Argentina, Jay, and more so sort of how they approach the game. Like, do you just go out there and say, we can't let Argentina score? Or do you open it up and say, hell, let's try to get to 3?
They're 48th in the world now. In 2014, they were ranked 122nd.
That's awesome.
We're on fire.
Yeah. So they are definitely moving up the charts, to say the least. And so there could be two big games, obviously very different. The Elks, it's not near what would be a gold medal game or a championship for the Copa Americas. But I look at Sunday's game, Spec, and, I can't say must win because, if they win one game, I don't think it changes, drastically for the organization. But if they lose, it just digs them even deeper in a hole. And I think they would just like to stop digging at this point.
Yeah, you got to stop digging. That's probably the best analogy. How do you get out of the hole, right? It starts with putting the shovel down. So, they have had a bye week. Guys are rested. They've made a couple improvements. They've got some injuries back. They've had 2 weeks to game plan and scheme, the coaching staff. You're right, Jay. This is, I think, a bit of a prove it to me game. I know you've been close, and I know you played lots of good football, and I know you moved the ball pretty well. The Elks have moved the ball pretty well on offense, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? In the end, win a ball game for me here. We're 0-4 in Edmonton. You're teetering on another irrelevant season. Save this thing. Give me a week where I feel like my team's got a chance. So I'm with you. It doesn't, you can't make the playoffs with this win. But if you don't win this one, you sure can make a lot of people shrug their shoulders a little bit.
Spec, enjoy the lake. We'll chat with you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
There you go. That's Mark Spec from the Spec Report, brought to you by GS Construction. When we come back, Kevin Woodley. So the Edmonton Oilers have made a change. Sylvain Rodrigue, who of course was the goalie coach in Bakersfield, is no longer. What does this mean? How many available candidates are there? Our goalie guru, Kevin Woodley, will join us next to discuss that on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is
On Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time for our big guest of the day, brought to you by Silent Rides, Alberta's premium bus charter companies with state-of-the-art motor coaches that will safely take you or your group to their next destination. Book your ride today at silentrides.ca. As we welcome in from In Goal Magazine and NHL.com, Kevin Woodley joins us. Kev, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I'm refreshed. I'm back from Honolulu, and I guess went right into dev camp with the Canucks, and sort of now everybody else is kind of winding down, and I'm just heating up with planning July and August and making sure that we're at the right camps with the right goalies to have a bunch of content ready for next year.
All right. So the Edmonton Oilers, now I know that this announcement, it just didn't happen. They've been talking about it for a while, but Sylvain Rodriguez is moving on. So they're looking for another goalie coach, Kevin. How deep is the goalie coach pool for guys who are looking to fill that role as kind of like, second in the organization where you'd oversee the American League team?
I mean, it's pretty deep. The only thing you don't have access to essentially is guys who are already in the NHL or guys who are already in the American Hockey League. But if you think about the depth, like this is a position and a job that has expanded so much in recent years, whether it's in the CHL, even junior A teams, some of the USHL programs that run, I know of USHL programs, and actually I can think of a candidate from the Chicago Steel where they ran that thing with enough video and support that it probably is deeper pool of resources, frankly, than a lot of American Hockey League teams. You think of the NCAA and all the coaches there. So there's a fairly deep pool. It just can't it's outside the professional ranks. That's the only thing you're sort of missing out on, right? So, and I know Dustin Schwartz built strong relationships in the Western Hockey League and with Hockey Alberta in a mentoring role, was involved in a symposium that they put on with Hockey Canada as well. And so he'd have a really good understanding of who coaches, who's just pushing pucks around and who's running drills and who's actually teaching at that level. And that's where doing those types of extra things really pays off. It allows you to sort of see who's really thriving as potentially a next person up opportunity, arises in your own organization. Don't know really what happened with Sylvain in terms of, where that decision lied. But I understand he's already landed somewhere. It sounds like he'll be actually, ironically, joining the Florida Panthers organization in their American Hockey League affiliate with Charlotte, as Leo Luongo shifts over to more of a scouting and development role. And we're seeing, this is the other thing too, like for Oilers fans and for the organization, you're filling one spot, but you're still, once you do, you've only got two guys. And if you start to look around, two things we're seeing as trends. One, a director of goaltending to oversee this so that there's synergy from top to bottom with all the goalie coaches in the organization. And the other trend that I'm seeing, a couple of teams have started it, and I think a couple more are going to join this summer, and that's to have another guy in the East Coast Hockey League doing scouting, roving around. If you've got prospects in the NCAA, WHL, or college, you're checking in with them and their goalie coaches. And so it's not a criticism, but if I compare where they're at from a staffing level for this position compared to where other teams are and more are getting to, I could make an argument you might want to make more than one hire here.
Week after week, Kevin, we talk to you, and I'm becoming a convert that no one knows more about goalies than you, and goalie coaching for that matter. Who are the great goalie coaches in the NHL?
Well, one of them just moved on to, I guess he's switching to a director role. I actually thought he was going to retire, to be honest with you, and Benoit Lair. And it sounds like they're going to mostly promote from within, and everybody will shift up the ranks there from the American League to the NHL. They've got an outside hire coming into their AHL spot. But to be honest, I'm not sure if they've announced it, so I don't want to speak out of turn and announce it for them on the show. Benny Allaire is certainly one of them. I think Ian Clark has a ton of respect in Vancouver, and you look at the job he's done, not just in terms of, helping build up a Sergei Bobrovsky's from what he looked like in Philadelphia to what he became in Columbus, and now a Stanley Cup champion and two-time Vezina winner. You look at Jacob Markstrom and Thatcher Demko and even Artur Shilov's on a tiny sample. His track record of coaching is exceptional. There's sort of a lot of guys, and they all come with different approaches. The thing about the Allairs and the Clarks and Francois Allaire before them, and Mitch Korn, who's now in a director role back in Nashville, the thing that they did is, they've got a track record with multiple different goaltenders having success. You think of Allaire with Lundqvist and now Shesterkin. You think of Clark with, I mentioned Bobrovsky, Luongo before that in his first go around with Vancouver, and Mark Sherman Demko. You think of Francois Allaire, obviously Patrick Waugh, but also the success he had with Jean-Sebastien Giguère. Like, to me, sort of the guys that do it with multiple different goalies over the years, that's sort of what gets you to that level. And that said, like, it's a really tough position to judge, right? Like, think about, like, I remember when I remember maybe 5 years ago doing radio in Winnipeg, and one of the questions that I would get every time I was on was about, did they need to make a change in the goalie coaching position in Wade Flaherty? And I'd been exposed to Wade and his work, and I was quite impressed by it. And people in that market just wanted him gone because the goalies weren't having success. And Connor Halley had just turned pro and was just starting to come and was struggling with some of the early adjustments that I knew would pay off down the stretch. But in the short term, there was going to be some bumps in the road. And man, a lot of people wanted him out of that organization. And here we are 4 or 5 years later. Hellebuck's got his second Vezina trophy, and nobody's asking me questions, about Wade Flaherty and whether he should be the goalie coach with the Winnipeg Jets. And we sort of, Jason, we had this conversation earlier this year when there was so much pressure on Dustin Schwartz. Similarly, like in similar veins, that's what those questions reminded me of with Flaherty. And now Stuart Skinner's gotten them to Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. His name's probably going to be on the short list for, Hockey Canada at the Four Nations tournament next year. Like, it really is hard, even for me, to know who does a great job. I see it because I'm looking for it maybe more than the average observer. But unless you're in a city, like I watch Ian Clark every day. I learned a ton during the pandemic because teams would come in here for 4 or 5 days and they'd have days off between games, and I'd watch their goalie coaches, what they did in those extra work. But unless you're watching that on a regular basis, it's a really tough question to answer. So you end up with the guys in my answer that have been doing it for a long time and have success, in some cases across multiple organizations, but certainly with multiple goaltenders. And on that note, last one, Jason knows I rant about this one all the time. Whether it's Francois, whether it's Benoit, whether it's Mitch Korn, we need to start having the conversation or continuing the conversation, especially starting with Francois Allaire, that he needs to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Well, and the other thing, Kev, is you also need you can be the best goalie coach in the world. You need a good goalie to take your teaching and make it work, right, at the end of the day. And so, you could have a great goalie coach, but if you only have an average goalie, you can't make him a great goalie. No head coach all of a sudden makes an average team great just by his coaching, right? I don't think it's going to be that much different for a goalie.
That's where you need to, well, I say need, that's where you'd like to have a voice in the conversation. And not all goalie coaches have the same voice in that conversation with different organizations. And I'll be frank, I don't fully know just how much input Dustin has in all the personnel decisions. Like I just genuinely, as an outsider, am not aware of that. So it's not me trying to, defer. But I think in the best situations, like in Vancouver, for example, because that's a situation I know quite well, like Ian Clark has built a scouting manual that he shares with this guy. Like it's a book, it's a big one. And so that the idea is that they're looking for the qualities that he wants in a goaltender, so that when they pick a guy, it's going to suit the things he wants to work with. Well, now, whether he's right or wrong, I think over the years, the track record suggests it's a winning formula. But the things that Artur Silov's brought as a prospect fit with what Ian Clark teaches as a goalie coach. And so that's why you're able to have a trajectory working together. I was at a symposium recently where an NHL goalie scout he was delivering a message to the goalie coaches in the room about their ability to work with different types of goaltenders, because the guy we determined as a scouting staff might be the best one for us in the draft, might not necessarily fit how you're normally prefer to teach. And I get that as a philosophy, but I kind of look at the Clark model and I'm like, well, why would you bring in a goalie? If you're a longtime goalie coach, it might not fit his preferences, right? So to me, that synergy from top to bottom that we see with organizations that have a director of goaltending and have that input all the way down to scouting. And like I said, now increasingly right down to the ECHL, Because look at the depth chart. You guys signed in Edmonton, they signed Colin Delia. So they've got
Unger is going to be their East Coast Hockey League goalie to start.
Right. So there's a goalie who, and this happens a lot. This is not picking on Edmonton. Like I'd say at this point, 26, 27 teams in the NHL, this happens to. And up until recently, all 32. The goalie who is the youngest, who is freshest to pro, who is in the league with the most chaos in front of them, but also needs the most help. And this now includes, Sebastian Cossa. That's where he started for Detroit, a first-round draft pick. They're the ones that are most often left to their own devices in the most crucial years. And yes, there is an element of, hey, like just figuring it out and learning your own game and being the master of your own game counts. But I'm not sure that's where that conversation should start. And so for Connor Unger, wouldn't it be beneficial if there was somebody top to bottom in the organization that was spending that time with him as well?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, right? You draft these young guys and it's like, well, figure it out. Well, where's the goalie coach? Yeah, he sees you once every 3 weeks. Well, and I get that, hey, the NHL guys are there, but are you making that drastic changes? I know they're fine-tuning all the time, but when you consider how much money the organizations have, and if you look at the importance of that position, and an organization says, you know what, we're going to spend whatever it is, $100K, $125K, whatever the number is, to have a full-time goalie coach for our ECHL team, it seems like a really good long-term investment that will give you a great ROI.
Well, I mean, I tend to point to some of the examples I know best. And so obviously covering the Vancouver Canucks as intimately as I do, and knowing Ian Clark, like he's the guy that got me into goalies, right? Like that, he had a magazine when he was first with the Vancouver Canucks. So there's a relationship there. But like, what's the value of Artur Silovs? And, Clark's in a director role. And so he's director and NHL goalie coach. And so his system or his scouting, manual got them a guy that fit the way he teaches. He hired an American Hockey League coach that teaches similar things, different style as a coach in terms of, how he manages his athletes and deals with them on a day-to-day basis and communicates. But the teaching, the technical elements are the same. There's synergy there. And so Artur Silovs gets them to the second round where you're no longer splitting the gate. Average $500 a seat, probably a lot more for a lot of them in Vancouver. 19,000 times 4 home games. Talking what, $40 million? Because you had an option out of the 6th round, if I'm not mistaken, that was ready a couple years later to step in out of the number 3 hole into the NHL. Like how does it not make sense to make that investment?
Yeah. Kev, as always, man, great stuff. We truly appreciate it. We will chat with you again next week. Have a good one.
Good to catch up. Thanks.
There you go. That's Kevin Woodley from In Goal Magazine, NHL.com. I always learn a lot of stuff from Woodley. It's why we like having him on and understand the position. So he feels the options for goalie coaches rather deep to see where they go to have a second in command and maybe number 3. We'll see. It is the Gregor Show coming to you live in the EWEL studio, EWEL.ca, your partner in power, supplying the City of Champions and all of Alberta with all your electrical needs since 1976. EWEL.ca. brought to you by VolvoCarsEdmonton.com. They are Canada's #1 Volvo dealership. And you know what? Not only they have heated seats, they got the cooling seats. And trust me, and this is where you wish you had it. You know what? There's not a lot of days, but when you have it, it's sure nice to have it. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com.
It's been a couple of weeks, Gregor. Feels like the Oilers were in the Cup final a month and a half ago. It's only been 14 days thereabouts. I personally, and I don't know where you feel on this, I'm sure you're a professional. I was sad in the moment when the Oilers lost the Stanley Cup in Game 7. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel a sense of dejection. I didn't feel a sense that they aren't capable of repeating a wonderful season last year. And in the 2 weeks since the season ended, I think they're a better team. Is that a fair statement, Gregor?
Oh, yeah, I think it's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
So for Oilers fans coming off the dejection of a Game 7 Cup run, which is definitely hard for some to stomach, I think, in the moment, what would you think is the outlook for next year?
Well, I think for the Edmonton Oilers, you have to start first steps. Win the division, win the West. I think that, to me, has to be their focus. They want to try to have home ice advantage, so they're not starting on the road in Game 1 if they make it to the Stanley Cup final, or Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. And considering that they're 0-4 in those games in their last 2 visits to the Stanley Cup, I think it's a significant part of it. They're actually 0-6 in games 1, 2, and 7.
What's on the to-do list if you're Jeff Jackson / the new GM? What remains to be done before next season other than the salary cap?
Before next season, honestly, I don't think that you hire your GM. Other than that, it'll come down. A lot of it stems on the health of Evander Kane. If Evander Kane, because my understanding is this, Evander Kane is going to try to rest and rehab his injury first, which is the smart thing to do. And they're going to hope it works, because you know what? Like when Jeff Jack said, hey, get a second opinion, because you know what? That's what you should do. No, you know what? It's your body. You don't just say, oh, well, hey, one doc said we'll get surgery. Let's just do it. Right? You get a second opinion. And maybe doc said you just need rest. Well, let's double check. So I think they're going to try that first. And then you won't really know if it's working, because it'll start to feel better to be average Joe. Sure. Right? Hey, wake up. I don't have any soreness. Great. Then all of a sudden you got to get back into training. And then, you ramp up your training. And even then, depending on what the issue is, right? Are you going through all the planes of motion that mimic skating on a repetitive basis? And that's going to be the challenge, that they might not know the answer if it works until late in the summer, early September. And then if it doesn't, well, then you got to do surgery. And then so he goes on LTIR. And so, but if it does work, then you'll have to make a deal before day 1 of camp to make sure you're cap compliant. Not day 1 of camp, before the start of the regular season.
Are there benefits to putting people on the LTIR the first day of the season?
Not really.
So it's the same in the off season?
No, if you're off season LTIR, you don't have any wiggle room, where if you start day 1 without LTR and then you go on to LTR, there's a small, Bill Scott explained it way better to me one time than I'm doing right now, but there's a slight little bit better of flexibility during the year, right? But again, if the Oilers have Kane and they're in LTIR, for day 1 of the season, yada yada yada, but that doesn't benefit you unless he stays there, because if he's able to come back in February and March, which he might, all depends on what the surgery is and what the recovery time is, then we'll see. So that to me is it's not like the GM can come in here and is going to think of, there's 6 scenarios and they've outlined all 6 of them on a whiteboard. They know, okay, this happens, they've done it all. It's not like the GM is going to come in. Well, guys, this is not like some algebra. It's not Goodwill Hunting, right? When all of a sudden Matt Damon's walking down the hallway and it's like, boom, and he figures it out. Like, that's not the case here.
What if we did this, move this guy here?
So I don't think the GM's going to, hey, guys, you ever think of this? Well, no, Bob, I can't believe we never thought of that. So, there's only limited options to look at, right? So that's what I think for the season. And then they'll play out the year. And at the trade deadline, they'll address their needs again and feel what they have. And maybe hey, if Philip Broberg, to get rid of Cody Ceci right now for nothing, I'm like, well, what's your right shot defense depth like? Yeah. Honestly, what is it? So I'm like, yeah, I might want to temper that a little bit for people. And then, because it would be, we have Evan Bouchard and that's it. Troy Stetcher, okay. Is he a guy we want to go in the playoffs with? No, I don't think so. So we'll see. Wanye, good to see you, buddy. Have a good one. That's Wanye Gretz. On behalf of Declan Kruger, I'm Jason Gregor. Let's get to a Sports 1440 update brought to you by the Hockey Hero Society and their charity golf tournament featuring NHL alumni in support of the Hockey Hero Society and the White Court Boys and Girls Club. The gala dinner's Friday, September 6th, and golf is on the 7th. Book your foursome at hockeyheroesgame.com.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
And one last time from me, your Sports 1440 update, starting with the Edmonton Oilers. In case you missed it, the Oilers have re-signed forward Ralph Lavoie to a one-year, two-way deal with an average annual value of $775,000 at the NHL level. Edmonton Elks news is the Elks have signed American Sean Oakman, Derek Moncrief, Noah Taylor, along with national wide receiver Zach Matisse and global linebacker Les Morrow. Oakman, who was the marquee signing, joins the Green and Gold after being released by the Argos on the 11th of June. Oakman won the 109th Grey Cup in 2022 with the Argos and was a two-time East Division All-Star in his tenure with the club. MLB scores from earlier today. It was the Cardinals over the Nationals 6-0, the Pirates over the Mets 8-2. Two games in action right now, both tied 0-0, Guardians and Tigers middle of the 6th, Rockies and Reds top of the 4th. 3 games later today in the MLB, Twins and White Sox, Rangers and Angels, and the late game will see the Braves and Diamondbacks at 7:40. NHL news as the Washington Capitals have promoted Chris Patrick to their general manager position. Longtime GM Brian McClellan will remain with the club as president of hockey operations. A report from the NHL says that the Pittsburgh Penguins are closing in on a contract extension with franchise icon Sidney Crosby. And in the NBA world, Dan Hurley, who was formerly offered the Los Angeles Lakers head coaching job last month, has elected to sign a new deal with the University of Connecticut, a 6-year deal worth $50 million. Up next, it is Turn Sports, then at 9, Fox Sports Radio, Carius and Douglas tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I'm Declan Kruger. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440.